Hey there. So have you been experiencing a sense of, I don't know, people being a bit snippy, people kind of baring their teeth a little bit? Have people been a little bit resistant and possibly a bit defensive? If so, you may well be experiencing some of the oncoming Mercury retrograde energies. I've been feeling and experiencing this myself, I have to say, and I've had reports from different people in the community that they've been experiencing this as well. So what is this? You know, are all Mercury retrogrades like this? Well, the answer to that is no. But why is this quite volatile at this time? So in this video, I'm going to be deep diving everything that you might need to know about this Mercury retrograde, the Mercury retrogrades coming up in this whole year, because there are some links between them. Some tips on how you might want to manage the energy, how you can do your own research about retrogrades. And then finally, at the end, in the second part of the video, I'm going to be doing a sign-by-sign Mercury retrograde update for this particular Mercury retrograde from the 1st of April to the 25th of April, and also considering the shadow period. So if you don't know anything about the shadow either side of the retrogrades, then you might want to listen into part one. But anyway, hope you find this helpful so that we can know how to navigate this. You know, this is a pretty fiery lineup, I have to say. My name is Louisa Tanner Munson. If you've been here before, welcome back and thanks for coming back. If you're new to this channel, this is my channel, Feel Good Astrology, where I try to decode and really try to make astrology practical so that everybody can share in it, so that it's not exclusive to people who want to study it academically. I really want to try and bridge the gap between academic astrology and everyday people. And, you know, I think astrology is an amazing tool that we can use to prosper in our lives, to feel good. And that's the whole purpose. So welcome. Let's get cracking, shall we? So the first thing I want to do is just show you how you can do a little bit of research about retrogrades. And there's a really, really fantastic website. In fact, there's a couple of websites that I wholeheartedly recommend you use. This one is my current favorite. It's called astroseek.com. It's written astro-seek.com. It's got some really amazing free tools that you can use to really enhance your knowledge and learning. So let's bring a little clip on. So what I've got here is a little screenshot of, and it's astro-seek.com. And if you follow where my mouse is, I'm going to do this with it. Go to Astro Tools and then go down to retrogrades. It will bring up a list of all the different retrogrades in 2024. In fact, it's got a really good menu of different things. These are all the retrogrades of 2024. And then you pick the one that you're looking for. What you'll notice is it even says how long the retrograde is for. So for instance, the Mars retrograde later on this year is 79 days. And this particular Mercury retrograde is 23 days. It's got charts so you can see the impact. This is the retrograde Mercury impact chart from this particular one. And I'll be looking at that in a little bit more detail in a minute. But it was really just to show you how you can do your own research, how you can find all the answers that you might need. It also has this excellent little pre-shadow bit. So you'll see this. These are the dates of the retrograde, and it talks about the pre-shadow, the retrograde beginning, the retrograde ending, and then the post-shadow. So it's pretty good. And this is a graphical depiction of retrograde activity. What you can see in the middle is Mercury, and it appears to go forwards, then it goes backwards, then it comes forwards again. And it does this approximately 3 times every single year. So that is astroseek.com. I really, really recommend that you use it. It's really, really helpful. Another way of looking at this, and I've found this really great little website called astrologyhoroscopereadings.com. Now, this image, I should say, and all of this information is copyrighted. You can see 2018 just down there. It's by Roman Ole Jaworski. Forgive me, Roman, if I pronounced your name incorrectly, and thank you for this great image. But this is really showing. So he has listed the different positions or the different parts of the retrograde. And so the first thing that he's talking about is the pre-shadow phase. which you can see coming in here. And in a minute, I'm going to give it a little bit even more context to make it even more easy to understand. And, and what's happening at this point in time is that Mercury is starting to slow down. Then he gets to his kind of stopping point where it appears that Mercury is going backwards. And this is when the retrograde is said to occur. And the retrograde will go back to the exact same point on the ecliptic where the shadow started. So effectively, from where Mercury goes retrograde from and to, that represents the pre-shadow and post-shadow. Let me just explain it a little further. So I know that the retrograde ends at 15 degrees 58 in the sign of Aries. So earlier this month in March, around about the 18th of March, Mercury actually got to the 15 degree 58 position in the sign of Aries, and he was slowing right down. And then when he gets to 27 degrees in the sign of Aries, he's going retrograde. And then he's going retrograde all the way back through the sign of Aries until he gets to 15 degrees 58 Aries. That's when he goes forwards again. And then he's said to be coming out of his shadow in the post-shadow phase. And that continues until he gets beyond 27 degrees 13 Aries. That's where the retrograde starts. This is where he comes out of the shadow. So once Mercury goes into like 27 degrees 14 Aries, then we're completely through that retrograde period. And so this astrology horoscope readings.com, if you go there and type in Mercury retrograde, you'll see not only this one, but a sort of depiction of the retrogrades for the rest of the year for 2024. It's quite helpful. He's color coded it so you can see when it's in the retrograde, when retrograde stops and he appears to sort of change direction. I always think it's very much like, when you're driving your car and you realize you've gone further than you need to. And so you think, okay, I've got to reverse back up my road. As you come to a stop, you slow down and then you stop and then you are slowly reversing back and you gather a little bit of speed and momentum. And then you come to a stop again. Every time we're coming to these stops, we're just slowing down towards that final moment and then slowly coming forwards again. So I always think of me driving when I'm looking at retrograde motions. So this is the impact chart, and I wanted to bring it up. So the impact is really from the 15 degrees 58 to 27 degrees 13 in the sign of Aries. Now, in this particular chart, you'll see you've got the ecliptic. That's the where you see all of the star signs around, or the zodiac signs all the way around the chart. This is 0 degrees Aries. That's where it starts. And then you'll see just here, it's at 15:58. It goes all the way to 27:13. Now, what this Astro Seek has done really beautifully is it's shown the different aspects that this area will make to different parts of your chart. So effectively, if you've got anything in your chart between 15, 58, 27 degrees 13 in the sign of Aries, or in the sign of Libra, so Aries is here, Libra is here, that would be in an opposition, like 180 degrees away. This particular Aries retrograde is like, Mercury retrograde is likely to be really scorching and really strongly felt, because it is aspecting a part of your chart that is absolutely kind of raw with the energy. It's really open to receiving and working with this energy. Similarly, if you've got planets between 15 and 27 degrees in the sign of Capricorn or in the sign of Cancer, again, this is going to have a really dynamic impact during this particular retrograde for you. Now, conversely, if you've got a lot, say, in Gemini and Aquarius between these degrees, it will give you more of a creative feel. So here the retrograde would be making a sextile to your planets in Aquarius or a sextile to your planets in Gemini. Now, if you've got quite a lot of stuff going on in the fire signs, like I have, you might have a lovely trine to your planets in the sign of Sagittarius, or you might have a trine set up to your planets in the sign of Leo. Again, look out for these degrees, and where these are featured in your chart, they are going to be a lot more impacted by this particular Mercury retrograde. And I'll be talking about the effects and how it might manifest in your life. But suffice to say, you can be using this in a very sort of inspiring and creative way with these easy aspects. If you know you've got some of these dynamic aspects that could be scorching, like they could really, rub you up the wrong way. They could be very frustrating, but it's not to say that they have to be frustrating. If you know that you've got this dynamic energy, it's also the kind of energy that you need to lift off. This trine energy is really revered in terms of astrology, so the Magi astrologers talk about the trine. The holy trine is so good. So many astrologers talk about the benefits of a trine. It's so inspiring. But I think a trine on its own is pretty weak. It gives you that great feeling. It gives you that sense of flow. But where's the impetus? I think when we feel really good, but we don't have any kind of energy behind it, it's almost like a waste. It's a wasted gift. So actually, I really love it when we've got some dynamically placed planets in our chart, giving us the square, because it's the thing that gives us the determination to create change. So, I really think there's a lot of, I think there's too much energy put on the oppositions and squares as being the bad boys, and the sextiles and the trines as being the good little girls. Yes, these more flowing aspects I think are more feminine, just because they're kind of flowy, they're not controversial. And then these squares and oppositions are a lot more rough and tumble, which I'm ascribing to more male values. But we need both of them within our chart to be able to really function. I've got a lot of weak aspects in my chart, and then a couple of really, really hard squares. And it's my squares I'm really grateful for, in fact, because they give me this sort of eternal questing to get things done, to get moving. So this Mercury retrograde could be just what you need to get things moving, because boy, this is a really, really big one. So let's dig a bit deeper, shall we? What's coming up? Okay, yeah. So this is just to show you the different retrogrades that we've got coming up with Mercury. Again, I did this search on astro-seek.com under Mercury retrograde. This is the one we're into right now. I'm recording this on the 28th of March. Now, the pre-shadow's already begun. It began on the 19th. And I've really been observing. I have to say, with a lot of these, a bit like, I don't know what it is that you do for your living, but for instance, you may well know a builder who is really good working with other people's charts. Not other people's charts, other people's houses. Is always doing all the building and stuff, but then his own house leaves a lot to be desired. I'm a bit like that, so I spend all my time looking at other people's charts. I forget to apply the technology to my own and to observe what's going on. So I've been really observing what it's like with this Mercury retrograde in Aries, given that I have my Chiron really in the right in the middle of this, and it's impacting my Sagittarius. What I noticed straight away as the pre-shadow began to come in, as Mercury started to slow down, the Mercury function, and we'll talk about Mercury in a minute. Mercury is about our clear thinking, our ability to articulate things, our ability to know things. But I don't mean know necessarily in an intuitive way, but to be really sure, to have this kind of clarity. I think Mercury is really useful because Mercury absolutely is on a journey all day long, from A to B. And it could be a communication, it could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, it could be a book, it could be a leaflet, an email, it could be a website, but it's information from, the deliverer to the receiver. There is always something being moved from one place to another. Mercury is the fastest planet. that we observe. Obviously, the moon is a satellite, but we do call it a planet in astrology. But, you know, Mercury is flipping fast, and, you know, Mercury dashes around. And so he's not necessarily high contextual in terms of information, but he gets the job done because he needs to. You know, he's like the delivery guy that shows up, has a cheerful smile, asks you to sign for whatever it is you've got sent through, and then he's off again, you know. So Mercury doesn't hang around. The moment that pre-shadow began, I started to get really conscious of snappiness in people, because he's going retrograde in the sign of Aries. Now, Aries is really highlighted right now. You know, we've got the North Node in Aries. We've got Chiron in Aries. We're into the Aries season now. And so, you know, our feelings are a little hotter than usual. We're running a little hotter with the conjunction between the North Node and Chiron. That has also made us sort of super sensitive. I was going to say hypersensitive, but I don't want to diminish what people are feeling. You know, people seem to be feeling really sensitive and touchy right now. And so what I was observing straight away, and over this, you know, last 9 days or so, is that we're in a time where you're almost like saying, oh, sorry. And it's also a little bit sarcastic. You know, people are kind of snapping back, and maybe not taking the time to find out facts. You know, they're kind of shooting off little darts here and there. So I've seen it a lot on social media as well, which is, I think, quite a good little petri dish that we can have a good look at. So we are coming into this time of Mercury going retrograde on the 1st of April, and it's going to slow right down. And of course, Mercury likes to keep moving, doesn't want to slow down. So if you imagine, we've got this sort of need to communicate, this desire to communicate, and it slows right down. It becomes frustrating and frustrated. And given that the ruler of Aries is Mars, you know, the Mars energy, it's inflaming. You know, it goes, rah! It's like our hot head. And I've deliberately put a fire in here because also the other thing about the retrogrades this year is they're all in fire signs. Now, there is a slight exception. The one in August starts in Virgo, in the first few, like 4 degrees of Virgo, and it spends most of its time in Leo. And the pre-shadow begins in Leo. So we've got 3 really fiery Mercury retrogrades this year. So I do think these are going to be retrogrades that really kind of take the biscuit. They're going to be retrogrades that we really do remember. You know, I've been a bit passé and a bit blasé about retrogrades because I actually find them quite invigorating. And I think a lot of this depends on how you think and how you use your mind and how, you know, what are your preferences? I'm quite a dreamy, mystical, philosophical person. So I love to go around the houses and kind of deep dive into things. So for me, my Mercury function, in fact, my Mercury's in the sign of Sagittarius. It's in its least preferred sign, and then I've got a lot of stuff in Pisces as well. You know, Mercury energy is not happy in the sign of Sagittarius or Pisces, really. You know, it doesn't function very well there. So for me, you know, my Mercury function has always been kind of round the houses and circuitous, which really fits the Mercury retrograde pattern because Mercury is not steaming ahead looking for fact after fact after fact after fact, you know. Before I go any further, I just want to say thank you to all of my channel sponsors in all the different ways that they sponsor the show. I really appreciate your help. I really appreciate your support, and I really appreciate your I don't know. I just appreciate knowing you've got my back. It's really, really lovely. And it really encourages me to do more. So thank you. So let's have a look at Mercury now. So again, I've already spoken about Mercury quite a bit recently in the Mercury Cazimi video, which, by the way, I did for the whole year. So even if you've seen it already, it's worth checking in later on in the year because the forecasts go through all the Cazimis. But just to sort of kind of re-clarify, you know, he is also known as Hermes. You know, Mercury's the Roman god. Hermes is the Greek. He's the god of translators and interpreters. So as you can imagine, Mercury is absolutely important in terms of us getting a clear message and hearing things correctly. So when he's retrograde, he's not hearing things or translating things very, very well. Now, if you are involved in international travel, if you're a migrant, if you're living in a country where you don't speak the language, you may need to just give yourself a little bit of extra time. If you're going on holiday during this time, or you're buying a house where things are kind of going from A to B, and you're making a formal agreement, you might want to just double check that everybody has the same understanding. It's really worth spending extra time. You won't regret it, and you might need it, in fact. So factor in extra time, because Mercury's ability to perceive, understand, and translate messages is diminished during this time, or appears to be. Now, he also serves as a messenger for the gods. So, Mercury is known as going from the humans to the gods and back. So he's like, I guess, I used to do that at school. I used to do like little errands for the teachers. I loved that. I was a bit of a girly swot, in fact, but I used to love that. But like the sort of go between people, like delivering a message from on high to the people that might need it. So anywhere where you've got that energy going on in your life right now, again, you might want to think, well, my capacity to do that is maybe not as good as it usually is. So pay closer attention. He's also the god of shopkeepers and merchants and travelers, transporters of goods and thieves. So one of the things I would absolutely recommend that you do right now is absolutely double check when you're buying things online that you've got the details right, that it's what you want. You may well find that people change their mind because the Mercury energy is really, really strong. And it's not functioning in the same way as it usually does, which is, this is for me, that's right. So have a contingency just in case. Don't, if you're trying to manage your money between accounts, and I've already done this month, I accidentally moved a ton of cash from one bank account to another, but I actually moved it to the wrong bank account. I moved it to an old bank account that hasn't yet closed down, but it's one I don't access very often. And it was just my own fault. I didn't check. I was, too busy doing stuff in a rush, hot-headed kind of like Aries energy going on there. So really do check what you're doing so you don't make these silly slip-ups. So, in terms of your business, if you're a business owner, pay extra attention. And also pay extra attention that the service you're giving, you are actually giving it, and that there is a way for people to contact you if there are any disputes or anything. I remember last year somebody paying for something, and I'd sent messages to say, great, let me know where I can deliver this to. And I didn't get any response, and I just thought maybe my email has gone into a spam folder. I put messages all over social media, on my YouTube channel, in the community, hoping that I could get hold of this person. In the end, I managed to, I tracked them down and managed, it took a good week to get hold of this person. But you don't want to necessarily be in a situation where, you've received somebody's money and you're not able to reach them. So think about it now. This is the right time to make sure everyone that you're working with or interacting with has more than one way to contact you, so that you don't run into these difficulties. Now, if you're somebody purchasing something, again, you want to be really sure, check out the people you're buying from. Do they have a good reputation? Do you have a good feel for them? And I say a feel for them really deliberately rather than a thought, because obviously our thinking capacity is slightly hindered right now. And, this is a time for us to be really in our body and understanding what's going on. So, yeah, all of these indicators are absolutely prevalent. And it's important to pay attention to them. Some of the themes for Mercury retrograde, I always think this is a really positive time. If you like to reimagine, re-envisage, like all these words for retrograde, re-engage, remember, reprogram, because you have a chance to go back and you can view it in your mind's eye differently. You can re-listen to things. I often re-listen to things. I mean, I'm forever putting things in playlists and going back to them, just because sometimes, when you listen to something, you're not really ready in that consciousness to do anything with that information. So these are great times to go back through your journals, through any places where you collect and keep notes and your half-read books and things like that, because this is a time when you're ready and open like a sponge to absolutely pick back on that, pick up that information and use it in a really magical way. I think this takes us out of our real kind of dash, now kind of rational mind and puts us deeply into the intuitive. And because Mercury's such a social little guy, he's from here, there and everywhere, moving around. I think this is a moment where we can actually be more social. Because, more really, really social, like social for no real reason other than it might feel good. Because, when Mercury's really sort of acting on his sort of rationality and moving from place to place, Mercury is meeting with people because of a reason and going here because of such and such. And it's always kind of purposeful. Whereas at this time, I think we can be really sociable in a new way. We can meet up with people just because it might feel good. It's a really great time for anyone that's deeply creative, that absolutely loves to work with music, numbers, colors, frequencies, vibrations, whatever. If you've got some kind of outdoor club or society, or you're volunteering, anything where people are gathering and it feels good and re-energizing, then absolutely use this time to do that. I cannot underestimate the power of journaling at this time. Really, really cannot. And this is a time when I tend to record hypnotherapy tracks and things like that, because I think we can absolutely access all of those old programs in our brain that maybe we need to actually look at again. So for instance, right now with a big trauma theme, given Chiron in Aries has, recently been kind of, I don't know, kind of really activated with the North Node. These two coming together, it's like the eternal sore spot has been really rendered into most of us right now. So lots of people are remembering these things. And what I've noticed in YouTube is there's so many different things talking about trauma right now and how to move through it. So this could be a really good time for you to connect into these old memories and actually think, these memories as I've got them, how helpful are they? Is there something I can do about this? So any kind of reprogramming is absolutely superb at this time. However, there are some challenges. So I've already mentioned some of these: delays in deliveries, difficulties to move around, miscommunications. And of course, because, we're in Aries territory right now, it's quick tongues, outrageous stories and lies. I wanted to put that in as well because, we've got both Neptune and Saturn in Pisces right now. And I think all of these planets that are moving in between them are kind of losing sense of their reality and connecting into the fantasy. So, Saturn shows us our reality and also the reality that people want us to have, because Saturn's very formal and is also very much about parents or society or the guardians, so to speak. And Saturn in Pisces can be quite nebulous. It's not that comfortable. And then Neptune in Pisces is kind of like, well, what do you mean truth? We could really play with this. This is really sort of creative. This is a space where we can bend and like deflect and refract and see things from all sorts of perspectives. So I do think also right now, at a time when we're really thinking in terms of clarity and Mercury going retrograde, having, Saturn and Neptune quite close together, with all the personal planets having just gone through or about to go through, and make connections with them both. I think we really need to be on the lookout for outrageous stories and lies, and to the absolute being sucked into things, and also being sucked into the drama of things as well. Like the drama can really come up. The key here, I think, is always with these Mercury retrogrades, what else is going on astrologically? So it's not necessarily just about the retrograde on its own. We are going through a time of massive astrological shifts. And so the Mercury retrogrades work like a much stronger medicine right now. You also want to consider, how is this touching your chart? So a couple of slides ago, I was showing you that, you know, if it's touching you here or here in your chart or here and here, it might be easier. If it's touching you here, here, or here in the squares and oppositions, it could be much more difficult for you to manage. So, you know, what is being touched by your Mercury and what is aspecting, you know, Mercury right now. Also, if you are the sort of person who has journaled during these times or used it as a time to brainstorm and reimagine your life and make some new plans, I mean, it's a really great time to work with things like the law of attraction. It's perfect. But you might also want to consider what happened last time when Mercury was retrograde and how you coped with it and things like that. So I think that's all absolutely essential. You know, this is an Aries with a strong current theme of the North Node and Chiron in a hangover together. Now, obviously, a lot of people do panic when they think of Mercury retrograde. I don't like that, actually. I think this is a time for us to be inspired. And really what I want to focus on are what are the gifts of this time. So yes, miscommunications can come up, and yes, we can get all fired up about things, but what's really fueling that? What's behind that? What's the gift of these quick and unreasonable and sometimes really flamey, hot-headed emotions that are coming up? Like, what is the gift of this? And it might not be that apparent, but that's how I want to look at it from a perspective of. So in the next couple of slides, I'm just going to detail some of the other things that are going on during this time to give you even more of a flavor and also give you some helpful dates that you might want to make a note of. Now, I will be talking about these also in the April update from the kind of your month ahead kind of focus. So this slide here is covering from the moment Mercury goes retrograde on the 1st of April 2024 at 27 degrees 13. You can just see it there, 27 degrees 13 in the sign of Aries. And it's taking us between there and the 25th of April when Mercury is around about here. So these aren't all aspects that Mercury's involved in. A couple of them are, but these are still big aspects going on. So, for instance, on the 3rd, we've got Venus in a conjunction with Neptune. Now, remember me talking about the miscommunications and the creativity of Neptune. Venus is, you know, a goddess of love and flow and creativity. Neptune is like a higher harmonic, and this is a very strong aspect, actually, Venus and Neptune in a conjunction together. And it could be used in a really beautiful way to really envisage something beautiful for yourself. I mean, in terms of the law of attraction, in terms of meditation, in terms of healing work, you could get to some really beautiful aspects. And you could start to like create a new future for yourself, you know, in your mind's eye. I always think, you know, where we go in our mind and our heart, our body will follow. You know, life seems to manifest around us according to our consciousness, the consciousness that we're holding and feeling and kind of agreeing with. You know, we go into the flow of it. So this could be a very strong day, actually, as we're just going in. Now, all of these dates are when they are exact. But remember, you know, a lot of these aspects, they don't just happen on that day. You know, they're coming in and they're fading out. And just it's on the 3rd when we've got the pinnacle of that Venus conjunct Neptune energy, but it's still there. You know, it's already coming in. On the 4th and the 5th, we've got the Sun in a conjunction with the North Node. I think this is almost like a precursor to the total solar eclipse that's coming up 4 days later on the 8th. So that's our second eclipse of this season, the spring eclipse season of 2024. It's a biggie because it's at 19 degrees 24, right slap bang on Chiron. So it's the new moon, it's the Sun, the moon and Chiron together. Mercury's also in a conjunction with them, and the North Node is also there. I mean, you couldn't possibly get it any bigger if you tried. It is massive. So that's a huge thing. So what I would say is between the 4th and the 8th, or just beyond the 8th, I think energies are going to get really snippy. I think we're at our kind of pinnacle of tenseness, our pinnacle of anger, sort of being lashing out, you know, people lashing out. I mentioned in a video a few days ago that I sat at a cafe with my family. My husband just nipped to the laundrette to put something in the dryer because in the rainy season here in Portugal, it's much easier to use the laundrette, and they're fantastic. We've got this laundrette right by the sea, a nice little cafe. So we're sat there having a nice little drink and a chat and playing cards and stuff. My husband's phone went, so I picked it up and someone starts barking at me. Who are you? Who are you? Tell me who you are. I was like, hang on. Like, this isn't my phone. I'm here to help. How can I help you? And this person was really, really rude to me. It turns out it was a prank call. It wasn't even meant for my husband. It was from a phone box. So somebody was just having an awful mood, just decided to pick up a phone, like, you know, draw a number out and phone it. And so I was trying to help this person. I didn't realize that it was a prank call. But in the end, I said, look, if you tell me who you are, let's start from there. And this person just got madder and madder. And in the end, I said, look, I'm going to hang up in a second. So I hung up. Then the call comes back and I get called all these different names under the sun. And I hope you die. And straight after, and I consider myself to be quite a peace-loving person, but I actually picked up the phone and phoned him right back, and I was about to absolutely defend myself and give him a piece of my mind. Like, this fire came up straight away. So, you know, like, I would absolutely say that, you know, during this time, this kind of response is likely to come up, you know. So, like I said, I don't like to fight. I will avoid fights all day long, given the chance. But if somebody is really, really threatening in terms of your personal safety, and, you know, like saying you should die or something like that, you know, or if they're like threatening your family in any way, you'll feel that fire come up almost certainly. I mean, the fire in me was completely agitated and I was ready to go. And if he was nearby, I probably would have taken a swing at him. So, you know, these energies are there. You know, we might feel calm and mild-mannered all day long, and you never know when a complete random stranger, you know, like comes into your world for a brief moment just to kind of poke you in a really painful place. So absolutely be on the look. Maybe don't look out for it, but be aware that if you feel your physiological state change and alter suddenly, that this could be the astrology that's going on. You know, so I think as much as we can, we need to self-soothe, count. I mean, this is like all the stuff my mum told me when I was like really young, you know, count to 5. 1, 2. Now, I just put those in for shits and giggles, really. But I think the more we can journal, the more we can be ready for the things that upset us, the things we get triggered by, the more we are aware of where we get fired up, the more power we have. I do think it's also good to recognize that you can stand up for yourself. So, you know, I realize that my desire to be peaceful and peace-loving is probably not very balanced, you know, and I hold my hand up to that. You know, I'm sure most of us we all have little strategies, don't we, that we survived our childhood with. And for me, it was people pleasing and kind of walking on eggshells if there was an emotional situation going on. And so we all have these little strategies that we learned as a kid, and they're often our default go-to way of coping with stress. They are flying out the window right now. So, you know, it's okay if you flare up. Forgive yourself if you do, but, you know, be mindful that when these things flare up, they could feel absolutely life or death. And, you know, if you are being threatened, you know, it's important that you're able to react in a really natural and open way, you know, in a way that it's okay to stand up for yourself. So I don't know, it's a weird one. I'm not advocating people fighting, absolutely not. But, you know, this is a time when we are called into action to practice another style of being. You know, if you listen to my forecast a lot, you'll probably know that I'm always trying to help people feel calm and help people recognize the opportunities in getting on with people and seeing that, you know, often what's really going on is a miscommunication. And when we're given the chance, we can usually work it out. And I still maintain that. But I do think there are these opportunities coming up where I say opportunities. I think there are I think there's a higher level of short-temperedness whereby, you know, you're not really transacting with somebody who's being reasonable, where you might actually need to stand up for yourself. So just, you know, be on your guard. Don't take risks. Don't go somewhere where you think that people are a bit edgy, and like watch what happens when you go into a room. Sense the energy. Are you safe there? If not, get out, you know. Don't answer the phone to numbers you don't know. Might be a good one. And at the same time, be ready for miracles and breakthroughs, because, you know, sometimes what we need to know about ourselves is we will stand for ourselves if we need to. You know, sometimes that's really useful energy to know that we're not victims, to know that we're not just going to lie back and be, you know, attacked. You know, it's useful to practice everything. So I do see that the opportunity here is to recognize that you do have teeth, and you do have an intellect, and you do have a survival instinct. And again, I'm not advocating lashing out, but be ready to defend yourself if somebody is lashing out at you. And of course, you know, my ultimate advice is don't put yourself in that situation in the first place. But there you go. So yeah, I think things are going to get really tense around this time. Now, the 15th to the 19th is another time when things are kind of getting more energetic again. So on the 15th, Mercury retrograde is in a conjunction with Chiron. So it's reactivating what was coming up, you know, between the 19th of February and the 5th of March, when the North Node and Chiron were in their conjunction together. It's also reactivating those feelings that we were getting when the Sun was in a conjunction to the North Node, and also during the total solar eclipse. So you might actually realize that there's a continuous theme going on right now. There's something that's coming up, you know, and the big question is, when are you going to catch it? You know, are you already aware of it? Are you already managing it? If so, around this time, you're likely to get so many more little internal nudges that this thing is ready to be let go of now, you know. So this is a time of very strong sensitivity, and it's not the last conjunction. It is also going to be in a conjunction with Chiron again on the 7th of May. So, you know, this is an energy that, you know, we've experienced a few times. You know, it's happening a few times this time. So the first time was I haven't written it down. I think this is the second time, and we've got one more go of it. On the 19th, Mercury's in a conjunction to Venus. Now, this is a nice one. I think this is going to help us, actually. Mercury and Venus don't always, you know, they don't have a regular mating like ritual. You know, like last year, they were only in a conjunction once. This year, 3 times. The year before, like 2 years ago, 3 times. So, you know, how often they touch and connect, you know, it's not set in stone. But when they do come together, I really get this brotherly, sisterly kind of energy. In the charts of people who have their Mercury and Venus in a conjunction, my observation of these people is they are really, really well. They really get on well with people in an amazing way. You know, like when it's really, really tight, you know, they have this ability to talk really calmly with people, to inspire people. They're just with the people. So I think this is really nice. So again, a bit like the Venus conjunct Neptune, where we can dream big, I think this energy is giving us an opportunity to connect. I think that's great. And then we've got this big power day on the 21st, followed by on the 23rd, the full moon in Taurus. So this power day, now, obviously, I will be doing a video on this one, Uranus in a conjunction with Jupiter. But also on the same day, Venus is in a conjunction with Chiron, and the Sun is square Pluto. So these are really, really big energies, taking us from, you know, 2 degrees in the sign of Aquarius to 2 degrees in the sign of Taurus. That's the span between these two. Venus in a conjunction with Chiron at, I think, 19 degrees in the sign of Aries, or 20. And then Uranus conjunct Jupiter at 21 degrees in the sign of Taurus. So this big day is impacting quite a few parts of your chart at the same time. And then the 23rd full moon in Taurus, it's big, because that's also still in a square to Pluto. So, you know, the end of this Mercury retrograde, I think, is bringing up masses of energy that we can use creatively, i.e. Uranus and Jupiter, super creative, very much about changing our consciousness, raising our game, expanding our consciousness. It's very technical, very inventive, very creative, very off the wall, very independent. It's going to bring up a whole heap of energy. Venus in a conjunction with Chiron is us being able to forgive, being able to soothe, being able to really look after our needs and look after the people around us. And then the Sun square Pluto is, okay, so yes, I can look after everyone and be okay with that. But hey, don't always feel in control. Sun square Pluto is going to be really trying to find a way to be in control. So watch out for that. The full moon in Taurus is going to for sure bring up a load of stuff as well. So, this Mercury retrograde is not a peaceful one. But like I said, be ready for miracles and breakthroughs. When we come out of the shadow, on the 25th of April, and that's taking us to the 13th of May, a lot of it slows right down. You'll see this, there's not so many things that I've put in here. But on the 29th, Mars is in a conjunction to Neptune. And I think that is a time when manipulation and power plays are really going to kind of kick in. So again, I don't think they're kicking in for no reason. All of these things I'm mentioning, they're likely to come up. It's like you've got the weather to grow the kind of plants that you've sown the seeds for. So, if you've already sown some seeds where, in your relationships, you might have been a little bit disingenuous. Maybe you thought you were sure about something and then you kind of later think, oh, maybe I wasn't quite straightforward as I could have been then. These kind of things are likely to come to the fore. And you might notice that someone's not being straightforward with you either. So, it's the more we can be conscious of the fact that we might have tried to confuse somebody or confuse ourselves, or, like we lie to ourselves all the time. And, it takes a while for us to cotton on to the fact that we might be lying or self-sabotaging or doing any number of these things. And the unconscious mind, if it's going to keep, like, its main directive, and I'm saying this because I trained in NLP and hypnotherapy. So I'm really fascinated with the way the mind works, and also, the way media works and how it can manipulate us and how we're also manipulatable. So I'm fascinated by language patterns as well. But one of the things with the unconscious mind is its only directive is to keep you alive and keep you safe. And often the behaviors that are that we have that keep us safe were kind of made when we were like 6 months old or a year old or 2 years old. So it was made from a place of an immature mind. And a lot of our behaviors and things that come up, they're so kind of patterned now that we don't really question them. They're kind of automatic. And so we don't necessarily realize that we're lying about something. But I guess what I'm saying here is you might find that some of your belief patterns and the way that you are in your relationships, it's tired. It needs to be re-envisaged. It needs to be remembered. It needs to be reworked. Like, bring it up to date. Are you still afraid of the dark or not? Have you got new strategies that can help? And, if you're using one of your old strategies in a way that is kind of in place to kind of manipulate somebody, not because you're a bad, horrible person, but because you're practicing a pattern from when you were 3 and wanted attention from your parents, and you're now applying it to your partner, be aware of it. It's okay. As it comes up into your awareness, you can just say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just realized that thing I just said to you, that's come from my 3-year-old self. Please forgive me. Let's move on. It's as simple as that, really is. So, I think between the 27th, I put in the 27th to the 3rd to kind of encapsulate this bit from Mars conjunct Neptune to just beyond this first, because on the 1st, we've got Venus square Pluto and Moon square Sun, big manipulation day. So this whole time is really, people are practicing. How kids practice, like they learn something early on in their childhood. I've got a 5-year-old and a couple of older ones. And so, they're just through that. But like when they get to 2 or 3 and they realize they've got power with something and they start playing it, to see if they can get away with it. It's a normal thing. We all do it. But it's like, catch yourself doing it. And then the last thing that's notable, I think, is the Mercury in a conjunction with Chiron again. This is the last time it's in the conjunction with Chiron. The next time, I think, is the 7th of May, 2025. So, got a whole year. So make the most of this. This could be a great day to have a session, like if you are in some kind of, I wasn't talking about myself there, by the way, but like any kind of session, like where you check in with somebody and like work through everything that you've been working through, and then have this lovely healing break at the end. You know, I really see that this is kind of signing off from the Mercury retrograde. Although it's still in the shadow, I think Mercury in its conjunction with Chiron is very useful. I do know that there is a Mars conjunction with Chiron, but that I think might be at the end of May. Can't remember off the top of my head, but that is also a pretty big one. Right. I just need to add a few things in because I recorded the first part a couple of hours ago, and I've since been recording all the forecasts, and I've just thought, I didn't mention that. I really needed to mention that in this reading. So one of the things about this retrograde that I think is also important to recognize is the fact that it's in the sign of Aries. And one thing I didn't say is obviously Aries is ruled by Mars, and so Mars's aspects in this month ahead are also important, and especially when Mars and Mercury get together. So on the 6th of April, there is, I think I might have even said it was a semi-sextile, but it's a semi-square. I made a mistake, which is a very Mercury retrograde thing to do. But the energy is frustration. There's this real strong feeling of frustration because there's a wavering in the intellect, and there's also a need to rush forwards. So, you know, the Mars energy is, we need to follow Mars, watch what Mars is doing, because that's also going to show up in how Mercury retrograde appears to us. Now, in this month ahead, Mars is going to make a conjunction to Saturn on the 10th of April. Mars and Saturn is, it's not comfortable. You know, it's like, I want to be right at all costs. You know, the question, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Mars in a conjunction with Saturn wants to be right. Doesn't care if you're happy or not, or if they're happy. You know, it's, I want to be right. And it's very much like Agent Smith. It's like the internal enforcer. If you think, you know, Saturn is like the controller. So there is this very controlling energy. And if you think that Mercury retrograde's also going on, there's going to be people checking everything that you are saying and reading and writing. Everyone's going to be like checking you out. I think between the 4th and 12th, I might choose not to even use like social media, because I just think it's going to be a fest of people like really wanting to prove people wrong. So just watch out for that. And if you feel like you're trying to prove your point, ask yourself, am I wanting to be right, or do I really want to be happy? See what comes up. You might surprise yourself, and you might just want a massive fight, and yeah, so be it. That's fine too. Now, the 8th is obviously the day of the total solar eclipse, and I did mention it a bit earlier, and I will be doing a total solar eclipse video as well. You know, lashing out is, I think, on the rise with this Mercury retrograde, given that it's going to be connecting to Chiron. Chiron and the North Node have already been in touch. Chiron is obviously exactly in the total solar eclipse. It's exactly conjunct the sun and moon. And so on that day, it's a really healing break that we've got a chance to have. But not everybody is open to healing. And some people, when they feel emotional and they feel sensitive, which could lead to an emotional breakthrough, actually what some people do is lash out. You know, they bite the hand that feeds them. And so, you know, if you're aware that you're feeding somebody that is in need of healing, you might want to take a bit of a step back, make sure you're out of swinging distance. Now, not necessarily about a fist, but, you know, you don't want to have your hand bitten by someone that you're trying to help. So during this time, I would also recommend really checking that the people you're helping have asked for your help, and just get really, really clear about that, so you don't end up, you know, spending this really special time licking your wounds and wondering what the hell happened, but actually that you spend this time feeling quite excited that you're about to have a healing breakthrough. Last thing that I will say as well, Mercury in sort of like world charts can represent the people, the children, also the pets at some level, like pet energy. And so with Mercury retrograde, you might also find that the energies of communication with your pets, your children, and stuff like that also goes awry a little bit. Just as an example, when the Mercury shadow started to come in on the 19th of March, one of my cats disappeared and is still missing. So that's almost like a direct sort of explanation of it. And the absolute last thing that I just wanted to add in before going to the forecast, and that is that save your documents, like really super save everything. I know, like, we live in a world now where everything auto saves to a cloud and this, that, and the other. But I really think, with this Mercury retrograde in such a sensitive position with Chiron, I think the things we lose at this time are going to cause us quite a lot of pain. So really do, watch yourself. Wherever we are tight, wherever we're not paying attention, this is where the Mercury retrograde is likely to come in and kind of give us a jab. So I hope that's helpful. So anyway, on with the show. Now, if you don't already know what your ascendant is, I recommend going to astro-seek.com. Let me just take that back to the beginning if I can. Hang on. Don't know if I can. Oh, yeah. So you go to this part of the chart, which is free horoscopes and chart calculations, all the way down to, not very long, just down 2 options, to ascendant rising sign calculator. And then when you click there, you can put in your date of birth, your time of birth, and your place of birth, and then hit calculate ascendant, and then your ascendant just pops up here. Now, in this instance, this particular ascendant is at 26 degrees in the sign of Virgo. If your ascendant is later on in that sign, you might actually find listening to the Libra ascendant more relevant. The reason I say this is when I'm doing these readings, I'm doing them on a whole sign basis. And so, I'm, I don't know how to explain it. I guess if you know about your astrology, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like my ascendant is at 10 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. Most of the time, listening to the Scorpio one would be the right one for me. But if I'm talking about aspects that are happening in the late degrees of a particular sign, you might be better off looking at the next one along. So if your ascendant is like 25 degrees or more in a particular sign, I would recommend listening to that one and the next one along and seeing which seems more relevant. Now, obviously, if you know how to look at your birth chart, you can make your own decision, because you've got the skills to do that. You can check it out and take what you need to, whatever is helpful, just use that. So anyway, should we dig in then? Let's have a look at these forecasts now. Okay, so Aries ascendant, this is your Mercury retrograde forecast for the Aries retrograde happening in April. So as you can see here, the retrograde starts on the 1st of April and it starts at 27 degrees 13, roughly here, and it goes back through to 1558 in the sign of Aries. And then on the 25th, it starts to move forwards again. And then it finally comes out of this shadow on the 13th of May. So these are helpful dates to be aware of. And then from the 13th of May, it's back to normal. Now, the big question is which parts of your charts are really kind of on fire right now? Which parts of your charts are really hit up by this Mercury retrograde energy? Because anywhere where you're stressed is also likely where you'll be making mistakes. Like if you think Mercury retrograde, it gives us the experience of things not going quite so smoothly, where miscommunications occur, where we get a bit slapdash, where we lose things, where we run out of time. Where I guess Mercury retrograde to me, and obviously I explained it a lot in part 1, so if you're curious, check that out. But with Mercury retrograde, anywhere where we're not prepared, anywhere where we're trying to rush and kind of save time, and when we're not really paying due diligence, they're the times when we seem to fall flat on our face. And so all of the big aspects that are happening during this time from the 1st of April, pretty much right the way through to the 13th of May, are absolutely indicating where we're likely to have the slip ups or where we're likely to have the breakthroughs if we're going to look at it the other way. So here's how I think this is likely to affect you. So the first thing I want to kind of highlight are these two areas. So, and I've put this area here, this kind of light blue area, I've described it as being the big day. It's the 21st of April. On the 21st of April, we've got Pluto at 2 degrees in a square with the sun at 2 degrees, sort of encapsulating this area and kind of really lighting it up. We've also got the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction here on the 21st, right here on this yellow spot. And we've also got, let me just find out, I've forgotten what it was. Hang on. We've also got, I've just found out, we've got a conjunction between Venus and Chiron at 20 degrees in the sign of Aries. So this is in this area here as well. So on the big day, we've got this huge kind of span of aspects kind of really being highlighted. And for you, Aries ascendant, the parts that are highlighted essentially is the 11th house to the 2nd house. You know, this area of your life is the area of your life that is most likely to experience the fluctuations in your energy levels, the fluctuations in things like being miscommunicated and possibly going wrong, but also show where you're likely to have an opportunity to use that energy in a beneficial way. So here's my little rundown. So first of all, these areas, the 11th house is absolutely, I think of it as the law of attraction house, because it's the place where we're co-creating our joy. So co-creating our joy, that could be the law of attraction, like you are working with the powers that be or your own unconscious mind, but you are collaborating with something to bring about greater joy. At another level, you could say the 11th house is about your collaborations and how you're finding joy with your friends. So the friends definitely fall in the 11th house, and societies and associations and networks all falls in the 11th house, as do stepchildren. So if you've got stepchildren, they are falling in this place where you may well come up with some miscommunications. So there is an opportunity with friends and also the law of attraction. So like one way you could use this energy right from, off the bat is to be journaling, be absolutely thinking big. You might also want to think big and include your friends on it. And you might want to give yourself extra time when you're meeting your friends. So you might want to build a bit of extra time in. One of the reasons I say that is because we've also got a lot of energy here. So the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April is a pretty big deal. Again, on the 15th, this part of the chart is also emphasized by Mercury in a conjunction with Chiron, right on the same spot. This is the same spot that Chiron and the North Node were in a conjunction at just a couple of months ago. So, or just a month ago, in fact. So, this is really sore energy, and this is in the part of your body, the part of your personality, your ego, what people really see about you, and about your boundaries. And so I think that's another reason why it's so important to be really clear with your friends, clear with your networks, and also clear with the law of attraction if you are bringing in something and inviting something to come in. It's be really clear about where you stand, be really clear about your space, be really clear about your needs. It's okay to have needs. And I think during this Mercury retrograde, your needs are going to be like inescapable. I don't think you're going to be able to ignore your needs any more than you usually do, because your needs will start screaming at you. If your boundaries are encroached upon, the feeling is going to be so strong inside you. So I think it is a time to step back a little bit and also communicate your needs, your boundaries, and also how and when you want to meet up with friends. Now, that's not to say you keep them all at arm's length necessarily, but that you're engaging in some kind of idea about how you're going to be together, and maybe plan things that are a bit more fun, plan things that are a bit more out there, plan things that are a little bit more creative, because this energy is absolutely there for creation. If you're wanting to do something very specific where there's an actual outcome and it happens at a particular time, in a particular way, on a particular date, I would scrap that idea, because that's likely to bring up sort of microaggressions and anger if it goes wrong. And of course, Mercury retrograde, all bets are off. So do yourself a favor and plan things that are fun and spontaneous, and just communicate where your boundaries are, just so you know, or communicate them with yourself, get really clear. There's a couple of other things I think are fun. So like on the 6th, there's a semi-sextile to Mars, and that is really highlighting things in your unconscious mind. So it's really giving you the nudge, like a psychic nudge, about what you want to take action on. And it's maybe even giving you some intel that you hadn't considered before. So be aware for that. It may well give you the answer to how you're self-sabotaging. So, this is really important stuff for you. And then around the 13th, 14th, there is this semi-sextile energy between Mercury and Jupiter and Uranus. And again, there's this kind of sudden lift where actually you can put your mind to really great creative, inventive uses. You may well find if you've got a question, one of these unanswerable questions like, oh, I wonder what might bring me joy, or I wonder what might raise me up in an unsuspecting, surprising, and quite brilliant way. If you've got a whole heap of these questions, so that's a note to yourself, is maybe journal a lot and ask yourself these questions off the bat. But any unanswerable questions are likely to get a shot of intuition during this time. So make sure you're asking yourself enough kind of out there questions, so the sort of higher consciousness represented by Uranus and Jupiter and your unconscious mind can get answering it for you. Remember, Mercury and Uranus are higher harmonics. Like Uranus is a higher harmonic of Mercury, so they're both about thinking and brain waves and inventiveness. So this could be a really, really great day. The last thing that I really want to make you aware of, and it's not just about the 29th. This will be coming on for a few days before the 29th, but right now Mars is traveling through this part of your chart, and it does bring up quite a lot of self-sabotage. It does bring up kind of hidden enemies. Now, I don't mean to get you suspecting other people or anything like that. Most likely the hidden enemy in your life right now is you. So you think you want something and then you undermine yourself at the last minute. Mars is going to make a conjunction with Saturn. In fact, he might have already done that. Let me just pause and just double check. Okay, I just checked that. It's good to be sure, isn't it? Sometimes you just have I'm doing something like hard and fast, and I'm trying to remember all this stuff off the top of my head. So yeah, Mars and Saturn coming together, they're coming together in a conjunction on April the 10th. So they're going to be doing that right the way through your 12th house. It's a very sensitive place to have Mars and Saturn going through. Like Saturn can bring up a bit of disappointment and kind of a slightly downer feeling in you, which you're most likely already aware of, seeing as Saturn's been there for a while. It just kind of, it's not hopelessness. It's almost like a low energy, like you don't have the energy to kind of fight or the energy to pick yourself up. And it's quite normal to feel like that when Saturn goes through your 12th house. I remember it well when it was going through mine last. I felt like I didn't have that much energy. I didn't feel like I had that much get up and go. However, one of the gifts of it was I actually took myself out of a lot of sort of public things. I was very introverted during that time. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing at all. In fact, it was a great time to really give to myself and to get really clear about what was going on in my brain. And so, this time, it's like with Mars coming into this conjunction with Saturn, you could use it as a stick to beat yourself up with. And I recommend that you don't. But I recommend that you use it as an opportunity to look at what's not working, to notice where you're self-sabotaging, and actually to take some action about it. So, you've got this happening on the 10th of April as well, in this area. And with Mercury retrograde, it's a perfect time actually to look at the programming in your brain, to look at some of these patterns that have been going on for much longer than they need to now, And then coming up, this is as we're coming out of the shadow. On the 29th, Mars is in a conjunction with Neptune. So you're asked to take action about how you are in reality and how you are with fantasy and how you are with communicating your truth. Mars and Neptune in a conjunction sometimes a bit backwards in coming forwards with what they really, really need. There's often a moment of feeling quite discouraged. So I would say on this particular day, really between the 10th of April and the 29th of April, get really clear about what your needs are. If you think Mars is your ruling planet, and so him coming through and touching on these parts of your unconscious mind, which is what the 12th house is about, is really getting you into your needs and getting clearer about them, so that as Mars comes over this point, not long after the 29th of April, you're feeling a lot more calm, collected, and actually raring to go. So you've done a lot of kind of maintenance work internally to bring you forwards. So yeah, that's my real feel for the Mercury retrograde period for you, Aries ascendant. Just absolutely keep an eye out on what's on your boundaries, get really clear about what your needs are, and go easy with yourself. Really go easy with yourself. This could be a really creative time to create a new kind of future for yourself. All you need do is add yourself into your life. You need to include yourself. Don't do things for other people so much. Include yourself more. With Saturn going through your 12th in recent times, you've probably stopped including yourself. So it's time to bring you back into yourself. Anyway, lots of love. So let's move on now to Taurus ascendant. So, hey Taurus, this is your forecast for the Aries Mercury retrograde from the 1st of April, when it starts at 27 degrees 13, right the way through to the 25th of April, when it ends at 15:58 in the sign of Aries. That's sort of depicted here. And then it's still in its shadow as Mercury then moves past 27 degrees in the sign of Aries. And when it does, then it's no longer in the retrograde period. It's completely out of it. During this time, there's a lot going on in this sector of your chart. So I'm paying all of my attention to this area, really. And I've called this area the big day, because on the 21st of April, it's pretty big. It's a massive day. We've got a square between Pluto here at 2 degrees in the sign of Aquarius, and the Sun at 2 degrees in the sign of Taurus, which is, let's face it, right at the start of your first house. So that's pretty big. That's creating quite a bit of tension in terms of how much control you have in your life. You've also got Uranus and Jupiter coming into their exact conjunction on the 21st in the first house of your experience, which is really amplifying the energy levels in your mind-body system and really giving you an amplified sense of what you want to create for yourself going forwards, which is really big. We've also got, I keep forgetting, Venus in an exact conjunction with Chiron on that particular day as well. And that's going to be in your 12th house. So like the energies are kind of stretching all the way around here. So effectively, this whole period, this Mercury retrograde period, is really acting from your 10th house right the way through to your first. So like, how is that going to play out? Your 10th is about how you stand in the world and are seen in a public realm, very much about your career, your sense of achievement, rewards and recognition. Sound like I work in an HR team now, but it's very much about your external output and the output that people are seeing. The 11th is how you're networking and your friends and the people that are collaborating with you, maybe for you. It could be the law of attraction is also very much an 11th house endeavor, I believe. We've also got the 12th house that is absolutely being highlighted during this time in quite a painful way, I have to say, or maybe not painful. Maybe that's a little bit too sharp and triggering. But, with Chiron and the North Node in this part of your chart, suffice to say, lots of things have been coming up. Lots of things have been bubbling up to be recognized, to be seen, to be heard and understood, and to be let go of. This is a time of the great release for you. This is a time where all the things you've been holding on to, it's now okay to give yourself permission to let it go. So that's all really highlighted. And then the first house, which is about your identity, how you're seen in the world, how you see yourself, how you want people to see you, from like how you think you are to how people think you are. So it's really covering this whole area. So what I want to do is just talk about some of the things, some of the key times that you might want to manage a bit more tightly, and some of the times when you might want to be a little unscripted and a little freer. So the first things I want to bring up are the times that are going to be motivating you and getting you moving and using the Mercury retrograde energy and putting it to some good use. So around about the 6th of April, we've got the semi-sextile to Mars, where Mercury retrograde and the semi-sextile are working really, with Mars, they're working really well together. It's bringing up a sense of not urgency, but it's bringing up a fire to be quite social, be quite connected. It's bringing up, I think, a sense of possibility between you and your networks. What I would suggest is that you are very clear with the people that you're co-creating with and having fun with. It's not to say you need to be tightly scripting what happens, but just make sure you are clear on the times you're meeting, where you're meeting, etc., etc. Given that you're like this whole area, like your personal brand, your career, and also your friends and your collaborators are highlighted, I would also say it's a time to make sure you save all your documents. I mean, thankfully, most things save to the cloud, but you might also want to save to a local drive as well. These are the times when we might lose things. And if you're working with other people, sending things backwards and forwards, it's best to double check that you're doing that to make sure you don't lose something really, really important. One of the reasons I think you should take extra care and caution with in terms of the people in your life, and that's, yes, we've got the semi-sextile here with Mars. On the April the 10th, I haven't put this on, but we've got a conjunction between Mars and Saturn, which is really strong. And then right at the end of April, on the 29th, we've got Mars in a conjunction with Neptune. Now, Mars is, a mover and a shaker. And going through the sign of Pisces isn't one of his favorite things to do, to be fair. He's not very strong in the sign of Pisces. But in a conjunction with Saturn, he's bringing up a sense of correctness. Things have to be correct, but also possibly a battle, like who is right, who is justified, who is this, that, and the other. So I would be very cautious in terms of offering out my views on the world and politics and stuff like that. Because even if you're with people that agree with you, normally you may well find that on the 10th of April, when Mars and Saturn are together, that things, even in your place of surety, things can get twisted and contorted because people are much more interested in being right than being happy on that day. And then as Mars goes through this area and comes out in a conjunction with Neptune, you might also want to consider Mars and Neptune, when they come together, they often bring up a sense of discouragement. We're not very confident. So you may well find that, in this 11th house during this Mercury retrograde, that your confidence is lowering in terms of your networks. There's it's almost like there's something playing out, and it's probably something here. The total solar eclipse on the 8th, and then later Mercury in a conjunction with Chiron on the 15th. They're really highlighting this area. This is the area that was highlighted throughout February and March when the North Node and Chiron came together. And it's a very tender part of your chart where you're probably looking at yourself and not feeling enough. So I would really watch out for, your boundaries and the things that you're agreeing to with other people, because it almost feels like people in your life are wanting to have a bit of a righteousness fest. So just keep aware of that. And, if you're starting to feel like you don't have as much confidence as usual, take yourself out of that arena for a bit. Don't keep meeting up with people if you're feeling crappy at the end of it. It's much better for you to find a way to engage and co-create with maybe the law of life, like the law of awareness, the law of attraction, the law of bringing in an amazing new future for yourself. Collaborate with energy, collaborate with God, if or whoever you might want to name that, or your higher self. It's important that you're doing something creative, but you need to be able to do your creative activities with people that you feel confident with. So just bear that in mind. Like, last of all, I really do like the energy, the semi-sextile on the 13th between Uranus and Jupiter. and also Mercury. This Mercury retrograde, Mercury's going to be here, and on the 14th, he's going to be in a semi-sextile with Uranus and Jupiter, really starting to use that inventiveness and bringing that inventiveness out through your persona, and really kind of realizing that you are probably a bit stranger than you maybe first thought. Uranus going through your first house has taught you a lot about it's okay to be a bit different. You don't have to be quite so regular. You don't have to be quite so organized. You don't have to be quite so Taurian. In fact, it's encouraging you to really follow your real flow, your natural flow. And with Jupiter there as well, you're starting to really get a sense of who you are. Again, it's another reason why you probably don't want to linger in this part too much and spend a lot more time developing yourself and reading and learning and doing all those things that really add to you rather than get detracted from by other people. So what I would say for this retrograde period where miscommunications can happen is really pick your company well. Hang out with your most positive, enforcing, encouraging, forgiving friends. Spend lots of lovely time with them. And anyone that feels really super judgmental, any of your friends that feel like they want to be right rather than happy, give them a wide berth. You can always pick up with them after April, or in fact after mid-May. As Jupiter actually goes into Gemini and things get a lot more exciting, I think a lot of these internal tensions will disappear. So there's my 2 pennyworth Taurus ascendant. I hope that's helpful. Right, let's move on to Gemini. So Gemini, Mercury's your ruling planet. So retrogrades are always quite interesting for you, aren't they? So here's what I am really focusing on in this reading. So it's less about your first house, but more about this area of your chart that is really, really highlighted right now. So this kind of pale bluey lilac color is, I've named it the big day because on the 21st of April, the energies are really kind of encapsulating this part here. So we've got Pluto at 2 degrees in the sign of Aquarius, and we've got the Sun at 2 degrees in the sign of Taurus, creating a really tense square. We've also got Uranus and Jupiter in a conjunction together, and this is a long-awaited conjunction. So this is very dynamic. This is all happening in your 12th house. And then we've also got a Venus and Chiron conjunction on the 21st as well, around this 20-degree mark. So this area is really, really highlighted and potent. Not just, for the whole of the time of this retrograde, but in particular around the 21st, it's absolutely really, there's so much potential. So what I want to do is talk through some of the key times to note in terms of the Mercury retrograde, because what I do notice is, Mercury retrograde, it's a gift. And it also creates some miscommunications and misdirections and things like that. But a lot of it depends on the areas of the charts that are lit up. So anywhere where there's extra stress is likely where one of these straws will break in the camel's back. So what really occurs to me, first of all, is this area here, in particular around your 10th house, is particularly sensitive in this month ahead because Mars is going through here, is making a connection to Saturn on the 10th of April. Mars is in a semi-sextile to Mercury on the 6th. So you got the 6th of semi-sextile. On the 10th, you've got a conjunction with Saturn. And then, Mars is coming through this sign. And then on the 29th is making a connection with Neptune at 28 degrees. Mars in connection to Saturn and then going towards Neptune is particularly sensitive. Mars, it shows our need to fight or defend ourselves. And so as he connects with Saturn, and when he connects with Saturn every couple of years, we often feel like we want to be right rather than happy. And so people are picking fights a bit more. People are a lot more rigid and wanting to follow rules, wanting to follow authority. And, if they see that you're not following authority, they'll get really on their high horse because, like I said, they want to be right, not happy. And so it's not a very comfortable energy for many people, but this is coming up in your 10th house. And so when Mercury is retrograde and you're down in your energy levels, and your thinking capacity isn't quite what it usually is, this looks like an area that could kind of break, so the 10th house, this is about your career, how you stand in the world, how you receive love and gratitude, how people reward you and recognize you. So you want to be really careful about information that you're putting out about yourself in the public domain. Be very mindful of any emails that you're sending out to clients around this time, because they could be really misconstrued, and people could almost use it in a way to not harm you, but make you wrong. And that's probably not what you want. So I would really refrain from big meetings where you're discussing potentials. But if you are going to meet with a client, I would meet with a client that you are very well aligned to, where you're building something quite complex together, because then the Mars and Saturn energy are absolutely used perfectly. So for instance, if you're building some kind of enterprise or functionality that is very detailed and based on some kind of matrices, or I don't know, based on something quite technical and that has a very strong structure, then this is the perfect energy for it. But if you're having a sort of exploratory meeting, not so. Towards the end, when Mars comes into a connection with Neptune, we often feel quite dejected. So again, we might not feel so confident. So I see this going on in your 10th house. And so it's really important that even though Mercury retrograde is going on here, that you take care in this area, because you're not on your game there, or you have to be extra cautious. This is possibly where you might get an attack, given that Mercury retrograde is in the sign of Aries and Mars is the ruler of Aries. The Mars and Mercury energy together are really, really important to factor in. On the 8th, there is the total solar eclipse here in your 11th house. And again, that's pulling in the idea of networks and colleagues and friendships. It could be a really great place or date to set up something really new and exciting, but tensions are really high. So again, discernment is one of your biggest gifts this year, your ability to discern things. And so what I would absolutely recommend you do is that you take some time out from being so flipping social, like with your Gemini first house. There's a lot of sociability within you. I think you need to take a little bit more of a step back this month, given that your Mercury function isn't so strong, and that you need some extra time to use discernment, so that you know which things to put your energies into and which to give it a wide berth. I'm very excited around the 13th, 14th, when Mercury retrograde is in a semi-sextile with Uranus and Jupiter, because it's giving you a sense of what's to come around the 21st, around the time of Uranus and Jupiter coming together into their exact conjunction. It's a really inventive time. It's a really creative time. So you could be journaling, you could be brainstorming, creating big vision boards, all sorts of different things. Whatever you're creating and dreaming here could be so much bigger than you can possibly imagine. So I really think, all month anyway, but in particular on the 13th and 14th, leading up to the 21st, it's a deeply creative week to really put some big questions out there that are unanswerable. Like, what would bring me the most joy? What would bring me the most wealth? How could I live that I haven't yet thought of that would raise my game somehow? And just leave those big questions out and let the energy of Mercury, which is mental, Uranus, which is kind of telepathic and in the brainwaves, the collective brainwaves, and Jupiter, which is expansive. Let all of those energies come together and bring this idea to you. So let it percolate. The 15th is a particularly sore day. If you have a particular trigger that comes up, this is the day when it's likely to be really pushed into. You'll feel the pressure on, as if you've got a really sore pressure point. So the gift in this is that you're likely to be able to articulate what is at the core of your triggers. this is a really good day. So for instance, if you've chosen to journal through this time, in fact, you may well have noticed what has been behind self-sabotage and been behind some of your ongoing issues, right the way from February when the North Node and Chiron came together through to March when they were still together. And now everything that is connecting to Chiron is reminding us this conjunction here on the 15th is giving you the articulation. It's giving you the words to be able to bring it all to the light of consciousness. So your patterns and problems can be seen, understood, and possibly released. So some really, really big energy. So anyway, there's my thoughts about how you might use this energy. And like I said, it's really taking you through these 4 houses. I didn't really mention the 9th house, actually. The 9th house is your desire to expand and grow and learn at a much deeper level, which again, when your Mercury function isn't so switched on to the rationality that it's usually working at, Mercury now is more exploratory. It's a lot more intuitive. It's a lot more into context and bigger patterns and sewing it all together. So yeah, I think this is quite interesting, and there's a lot of activity here still, the 10th and the 11th. But boy, you can bring it to consciousness and see some new opportunities. So there you go, Gemini Ascendant. I hope that's helpful for you. Lots of love. So on to Cancer Ascendant. How can I help you in this ongoing Mercury retrograde in Aries? Okay, so how am I approaching this time, Cancer Ascendant? So the first thing I want to really sort of bring to your attention is, I think in terms of Mercury retrograde, it's a time when things can get misconstrued, miscommunicated, misunderstood. I think it's a time when things can get lost in translation and go quite wrong. And I also think Mercury retrogrades are a massive gift and an opportunity for us to reconstruct ourselves, to reimagine ourselves, and to give ourselves a whole new set of possibilities. So I also see it as a really great time. Now, what I do recognize is where we've got weak spots going on in our chart, that's usually where these miscommunications come up. So it's less about the sign the Mercury retrograde's going through, but it's more about where are the weaknesses going on right now? Where are you really stressed out? Because in those places where you're stressed out, you'll be taking shortcuts, you'll be changing the rules, you'll be taking risks, and you won't be taking as good a care of yourself as you need to. So this is why I'm looking in particular, not just at this area here where the Mercury retrograde is taking place from, like on the 1st of April, it's at 27 degrees in the sign of Aries. It goes back, works its way back to 1558. And then on the 25th of April, when it gets to 1558 degrees in the sign of Aries, it starts moving forwards again. And then when it gets to this point where it started, it's out of its shadow. And then we're kind of, boom, we're out of that first retrograde for 2024. But I'm not just concentrating on this area. And trust me, this area is absolutely a sharp area of lots and lots of things going on. But I see that there are other stress points, because if you think about it, the sign of Aries is also ruled by Mars. And so we must also consider the effects of Mars during this time. And Mars during this retrograde period is moving through your 9th house. On the 6th of April, he's in a semi-sextile to Mercury, which is, I think, pretty beneficial. Okay, I just noticed I made a mistake. So you might notice now, I've just changed that from semi-sextile to semi-square. If you saw me go, hang on a sec, that's not quite right. I was just working it out in my head and thinking, that can't be right. That doesn't make sense. Sometimes, working really fast and, we make mistakes, and that's a real sort of like Mercury retrograde theme, isn't it? So how funny that I caught myself out and will obviously make all the corrections I need to. So, Mars and Mercury, they're in a semi-square on the 6th, which is absolutely creating frustration and this desire to get things right, and the frustration when it's not going very, very well. But it is creating a lot of energy. It's generating a lot of energy to realize our patterns and see what's going on. So Mars is going through the 9th house. He's not happy in the sign of Pisces, really not happy. And he's going to, on the 6th, he's in a semi-square. On the 10th of April, he's in a conjunction with Saturn in this area. And is that right? Okay, I really am back now. I've done enough checking. Yeah, so yeah, Mercury is in a semi-square to Mars and is making a conjunction with Saturn on the 10th of April, and is slowly working his way through the sign of Pisces. And his last notable event in Pisces is he's in a conjunction with Neptune at 28 degrees in the sign of Pisces. Now, here's the thing. Mars is showing you where your vitality is and your ability to get things done, and the 9th house is all about opinions, the bigger mind space, your politics, your religion, your spirituality. It's also about your desire to learn. It's also about your desire to escape and adventure and to kind of dive into life. It's very, very unspecified. It's really kind of a big picture kind of energy. It's not in a bad house, really. It's really helping you sort of dive into the energy of the other. However, having Saturn going through here and Neptune as well, and Mars connecting with them both, it's kind of sort of irritating energy. Mars and Saturn coming together is the energy of wanting everything to be done just so. And so given the fact that it's in the 9th house, which rules politics and beliefs and religions, I'd be really, really cautious about spending time around people who are absolutely feeling justified in their belief systems, because you may come a cropper. Even if you're with people that you agree with, you might even find that their need to be right is absolutely so flipping right that it blows up. It's almost like people are not very peaceful at this time. And so I would really, really watch out for that and that energy. And then, as Mars, towards the end, it is after the retrograde, and when it's in the retrograde shadow, Mars in a conjunction with Neptune often gives us a moment of self-doubt and a feeling when we're a bit dejected, we're not quite sure how to move forwards. And so we're a little bit hesitant, and it's very easy to gaslight people who are in a Mars-Neptune state. And so having this kind of in your 9th house could be quite exciting, because you might consider new ideas, but you're not doing it from a place of confidence necessarily. It gives us a bit of a shock to the system, or not necessarily a shock, almost like a numb feeling of not being sure. You're really kind of unsure about where you are and about your sort of mental, emotional, and spiritual territory. So I think, Mars's position is a weak point, and with the ongoing retrograde bringing up stuff for you, it's likely to go wrong here in the terms of your value systems, in terms of life and how you're escaping out of there. Stay with me, because I'm not trying to tell you it's all doom and gloom. I will come round to how it all comes back together. I'm just kind of piecing it through myself. So other things that are going on during this retrograde, obviously we've got the total solar eclipse. If ever there was a time for things to kind of blow up and get a little bit eggy around the world, this is it. The total solar eclipse should be a sight to behold. I'm sure it's going to be really amazing to have a look at. However, with the sun and the moon and Chiron together, that is pretty tight and tense. And it's great for people who are on a healing journey, for sure. Absolutely amazing. In particular, anything that's unhealed in terms of your career, in terms of your father, in terms of being a parent, being responsible, all those things about taking on responsibility and managing responsibility. You've got this great big healing release as a possibility. And that is likely to come back into your mind around the 15th, when Mercury retrograde is actually in a conjunction with Chiron again. So this point is being really worked on in this year. It really, really is. As we come out of April and May, hopefully this whole part of your chart about how you see yourself and your career and how you're recognized, how it is that you're in the public domain, how you stand in the world, how you create an output into the world. Hopefully you'll have healed that. That's a really, really big deal. Really big deal. And given that we're talking about reputation and career and how you stand in the world, what I see now as being a potential weak spot is sparring, is when you're coming against people who are very, very certain of their rules, their views on what's right and wrong politically, in terms of religion and stuff like that. They are like a fly in your ointment in this retrograde time. So if there was a time when I would hold back from maybe being so public on social media, saying what I think, that would be my time, Cancer ascendant, where I would actually think, right now, it's more important to, sow seeds for compassion and forgiveness. This would be the time when, you might choose to just hold back a little bit and just think, okay, well, that person seems quite angry, or that person seems really justified. They're really justifying why they are right here. This maybe isn't the kind of person that I want to engage with right now, because they're actually not open to a discussion. Your whole ninth house is there to have a discussion in. And right now, the people showing up in your ninth house look like they want to just tell you what is so, and kind of take away your opportunity to make up your own mind. So I would probably avoid people like that. What I do see as being a really great opportunity, though, and that is, during this time, Mercury, in particular on the 13th and 14th, is making a lovely semi-sextile to Uranus and Jupiter at 20 degrees in the sign of Taurus. And obviously a week later, the Uranus and Jupiter energy come into their prime moment. They come into their beautiful conjunction. On that day as well, Venus is in a conjunction with Chiron, and Pluto and the Sun are in a very strong square. So I really see this week of opportunity, not week as in like everything is weak, but like a week, like 7 days from the 13th to the 21st, where you can really start to create some beautiful, exciting new ideas and plans in terms of your direction, in terms of your career and how you're seen, but also in terms of how you're creating your big plans with other people. So I really think this time, this retrograde period, is helping you recognize the people that maybe you don't want to feature heavily in your life in terms of your career and what comes out of your career, but really tightly think about, well, who do I want in my life and who do I want to take on this journey with me? So I see it as more of a time where you're developing a much greater discernment. Are you having your spiritual, political buddies coming in on your act, or are you really just kind of collaborating and coming together with people who are looking for solutions? They're not looking to make people wrong. They're not looking to, make things difficult. They're just looking for movement. They're looking for things to move, to flow, to express, and to be enhanced and expanded upon. So I actually think this Mercury retrograde is going to give you all the ideas that you need to be able to turn your career aspirations around and to really ferment them in such a way that you're really sure about who you're stepping forwards with. So I think it's really great. I did highlight the 8th house, and there's nothing in it apart from Pluto, which is pretty big. But the 8th house is very much about other people and their judgments and opinions. So I think that really sort of blends into this part of the message as well. So there you go, Cancer ascendant. May I apologize once again that I stopped the video twice during this just to check my facts. But it's really important, obviously I'm working really fast in doing these, and I want to do the best job I can. So there you go. Hope that's helpful to you in navigating the Mercury retrograde, and hope to catch you in another episode in the future. Lots of love. Bye for now. Hey Leo Ascendant, how you doing? So this is quite an interesting time. We've got our first Mercury retrograde of the year. The first full Mercury retrograde of the year, and it's in the sign of Aries, which in your chart is highlighting your ninth house. As these houses go, the ninth house is quite an exciting one. It's one where there's a lot of action in terms of things that are interesting, things that are taking you on an adventure. So what can I share with you about this Mercury retrograde that's going to be useful? Now, a lot of people go, oh, Mercury retrograde, it's all going to go wrong. And I do accept that there may be these miscommunications, misrepresentations, and all these kind of missing things, like we lose things quite easily during this time. But I also do see it as a deeply creative time where we can create something really quite amazing. We can create a possibility for ourselves. So it seems very important that we pay some good attention to it. Now, something else that's, I think, important to focus on, and that is, like when we get misrepresented, or when we miss things and we misconstrue things, we get the wrong meanings here, there, and everywhere. I always think they happen in the areas where we are taking shortcuts, where we are not paying enough due diligence, where we are just going a bit too fast and a bit too free, and when we're not paying enough attention. So, what I've done with this forecast is I've looked at the areas of life where you're not really focusing, or where you're really pulled tight on things, so much so that you're not really discerning. Now, obviously, with your Leo ascendant, you're ruled by the sun, but Leo ascendants aren't necessarily big detail people. No offense. And, I'm not, with my life, I have to say, I've made a few mistakes along the way in these forecasts. I've had to go back and correct them. So hopefully I'm going to get this one right. But, you're not necessarily big on detail. And that's another reason why I think this Mercury retrograde is really important to pay attention to, because it's ruled by Mars. If you think Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is pretty defensive, and Mars will really, have your eye out if you so much as make a mistake. So I think it's really important for you to really pay attention, because if you make mistakes during this Mercury retrograde, the effects are likely to be a lot, stronger. Also, there's a lot of astrological weather going on right now, so we've got the total solar eclipse on the 8th, right here, right in the area of the retrograde. We've also got Mercury in a conjunction with Chiron. It's retrograde when it does that as well. So this is a possible area of pain. So let's just step through this and put some more context around it. I have highlighted this area, these 4 houses, and I've given them the title "The Big Day," and that's because we've got 3 massive aspects happening on that day, which are spanning from 2 degrees in the sign of Aquarius, that's PLuto, right the way through to the sun that is here at 2 degrees in the sign of Taurus. We've, of course, got Jupiter and Uranus in a conjunction on the 21st. We've also got Venus and Chiron in a conjunction at this part of the chart as well. So on the 21st, it feels like this whole part of the chart is really woken up. There's so much energy and potential around this time of the chart. So that's why I've highlighted this. I really do think that what's going on here is informing all of these parts of your chart and back, So, effectively, I'm talking about the people in your life, the shared values and money and judgments between the people in your life and you, your need for absolute constant stimulation and adventure and fun and joy and expansion and spirituality and healing. And also how that feeds into your output, how that feeds into your magnificent career, how that feeds into you becoming larger than life in the way that any Leo ascendant person naturally usually wants to do. So, this is quite a big reading, really. So the first thing that really catches my eye in particular about Mars is really highlighting this part of your chart. So, Mars on the 6th of April is in a semi-square to Mercury, really creating a lot of frustration if things aren't correct. Now, this is highlighting your 8th house, so it's about other people's judgments of you. So you may find that in this month ahead, your lovers, husbands, wives, kids, in-laws, parents, grown-up kids, it feels like there's a massive judgment fest. You might also find, given that the 8th house has to do with taxes, social security and things like that, and banking, you may also find that you're under the scrutiny of big banking and big brother. So you may well feel quite judged. So I would really, really watch any transaction that you're doing around the 6th in particular, because that's likely to bring up a bit of a headache. And also make sure you get copies of the things that you're doing. So, if something gets lost somehow, you've got a copy somewhere of proof or evidence. I really do think that's important. Now, not long after, on the 10th, Mars is going to be in a conjunction with Saturn in this part of your chart. And, Mars and Saturn, when they come together, they're kind of warlike and almost like a general in the army. It's not just a soldier, but it's someone managing the soldier. So, it's almost like there are, what's that character in The Matrix? Mr. Smith or Agent Smith. It's like everyone around you becomes flipping Agent Smith, like monitoring your every word, monitoring everything you're doing. So there is this very strong energy on the 10th of people telling you, that's not how it is. And absolutely kind of holding out the vision and values of people right at the top of the tree. It's almost like there is this kind of proverbial shit rolling downhill. So really watch out in terms of between the 6th and the 10th. In between those times, you've got the total solar eclipse right here in the 9th house. Now, that could be really expansive for you. You've got your sun, which is your ruling planet, and the moon in a new moon position. It's an eclipse. So it's a really strong and potent moment of your year ahead. And it's with Chiron. So you could actually have a massive healing breakthrough at this time and feel really magnificent. The thing to bear in mind about this day is a lot of other people are feeling really quite tense and stirred. So it's maybe not that there's lots of terrible things going on. I don't want to say that, but people are feeling stirred in their psyche. And the fact that you are feeling quite magnificent and actually quite expansive and actually quite curious as to if you do have things to heal, and when you find out you probably do, you're actually quite curious about, I wonder how I might do that. Not everyone is sharing your openness to that at the moment. And so you may well find that other people are kind of discharging onto you, their sort of anger, or, it's almost like a misappropriated, people are feeling crappy themselves. And so they're kind of shooting it your way, So it's important to have really broad shoulders. And if you find that really difficult and you're really sensitive, then it's okay to stand for yourself and say, hey, I won't be spoken to like that. And draw it to a very sort of definite close and move on. There's potential for people to try and knock you down. And I think how you conduct yourself during this time is going to be really important. It's important to build up enough of your own self-concept before you get into the main part of the retrograde, really feel your most confident and magnificent self. Let's face it, you've been through quite a few challenges in recent times, with Uranus going through here and having Saturn going through here in like last year in particular, or the year before even, Saturn going through here really does create this, it's really had to give you the confidence to be yourself, because it's felt like people have been criticizing you. So like really focus on who you are, what you know yourself to be. And I would say, ask yourself the question every time you're coming up against any kind of discord, is who does that belong to? Chances are it belongs to other people that are projecting onto you, which is huge right now. Now, that sounds kind of a bit God, we're having one of those months. Ugh. But actually what I want to say to share with you is also what I'm really excited by. And that is the potential of the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction happening on the 21st. But the semi-sextile between Mercury retrograde and these guys on, the 13th and the 14th, in like it's the run up to the big conjunction that I think is something to really, really look forward to. So for instance, what's going on here, as far as I can see, is all the information and joy and stuff that you've experienced in the world is now informing you and exciting you and giving you this kind of inventive new take on things, this inventive new way you want to find freedom in your career, this sense of optimism, this sense of growth, this sense of something new. So your desire that you've like needed to get out and about, you needed to explore a lot more, your desire to sort of kick off your shoes and go barefoot for quite some time. Actually, what you've been doing over the last year or two in really following what's right for you, even though you've got a lot of criticism for it, it is now coming into its own in a really big way. So I actually see there is a sense of summing up coming on for you during this Mercury retrograde period, whereby all of a sudden it's all making sense. Like, that's why I did that. That's why I maybe wasn't as reliable as I might usually be. That's why I was really following my heart, even if everyone else was telling me not to. That's why. And it's starting to make sense. So the time between the 13th and the 14th and then the 21st is big. And of course, once that's finished, Jupiter keeps on rolling into Gemini in the 11th house. Boy, everything is just lined up for you to grow your idea and grow the support, maybe sponsorship, whatever. It feels like there are people that are ready to pick up your idea and move with it. So actually, I think this Mercury retrograde is a time to ask yourself massive questions, massive unanswerable questions. Ask yourself questions like, how can I take my existing plans and make them 20 times bigger? How can I surprise and delight myself so much so that I'm ever so slightly intimidated by the strength and vision that I hold and possess right now? How can I experience greater levels of joy in my life? All these unanswerable questions, because during this time, in the middle of the retrograde, Mercury about your mind, Uranus, a higher harmonic of Mercury, and Jupiter are there really working your higher mind, your unconscious mind, and it's really expanding you into a much bigger possibility. So there you go. The last date, which I've already mentioned, just watch out for you kind of self-sabotaging and not believing in yourself. It's really important that you ignore any people that are negating you. I mean, obviously, if people are keeping you safe, that's fine. But a lot of people are trying to keep people safe by controlling them. And that's really not what's going to work for you right now, Leo Ascendant. So there you go. Keep the faith in yourself and you will really thrive through this time. So I hope that's helpful for you and hopefully catch you in another forecast real soon. Bye for now. Okay, so on to Virgo Ascendant. So, Virgo, what I'm looking through here is the scope of the retrograde. So one of the things that occurs to me in terms of a Mercury retrograde, and that is that it's about missing information, miscommunications, losing things, and they always seem to happen because we're trying to rush through things. Now, obviously, Mercury is the ruler of your chart, so it has a much stronger impact on you when it goes retrograde. So that's worth bearing in mind. But one of the things I noticed with Mercury retrograde is it has the capacity to be like the straw that broke the camel's back, so it's like, that miscommunication, I misread that, I didn't set my alarm for the right time or something like that, so we have our life going on and, our lives are busy, right? And then all of a sudden there's this one little thing and it's a tiny detail that we mucked up on. There's this tiny detail that trips us up and then causes like this massive snowball effect. So what I notice is we get these trip ups in the parts of our chart that are the most stressed, not necessarily where the retrograde is taking place, but where our life is particularly stressed and pulled and activated. And so in doing this reading, the things that I've brought up to talk about in forecasting this, I want to encapsulate these 4 houses and not really touch on any of this at all. The thing that's really occurring to me is, we've got this sort of big day on the 21st of April where Jupiter and Uranus are coming together in your 9th house. We've also got a square between Pluto at 2 degrees in the sign of Aquarius and the Sun at 2 degrees in the sign of Taurus. We've also got Venus in a conjunction with Chiron in your 8th house in this area here, which is the area of the retrograde. So, to me, it seems like the astrology right now is just highlighting this part of your chart. So this is the thing I'm going to focus on. So what I want to do is talk about where things are tight for you, and how Mercury retrograde might aggravate them, but what the gift of that is and how that's likely to help you. So there's one last thing I just need to sort of explain before we sort of dive into it. And that is, I always think that the sign that Mercury is going retrograde in, the ruler of that sign is also pretty important. And so Mercury is going retrograde in the sign of Aries. The ruler of that is Mars. So what is Mars doing? And it just so happens that Mars is in this part of the chart, which is a part that is being aggravated right now. So that's the missing key. So as we are going into this retrograde, it starts on the 1st of April. Mercury's at 27 degrees 13. And during the retrograde, it goes all the way back to 15 degrees in the sign of Aries. And then on the 25th of April, he starts moving forwards again. And then on the 13th of May, he comes out of the retrograde shadow, and then the Mercury retrograde is kind of over. So the first big date, and I've noted some of these dates because I think these might be dates you might want to make, pay a close attention to. The first one is the 6th of April. And on the 6th of April, Mars is in a semi-square to Mercury. Now, what does that mean? Well, semi-squares are pretty frustrating. They bring up really big frustrations, quite sort of visceral frustrations, and they're quite quick moving. So one of the things is, there is this desire to move things forwards very, very quickly, which obviously details can get dropped and not be so closely defined. But there's also this sense that you can't quite work fast enough. And so that is showing up as a bit of a weakness. 2 days later, we've then got the total solar eclipse, which is kind of an interesting time. We've got the sun and the moon together in a new moon position in the sign of Aries, which Mars is the ruler of. Chiron is also exactly in the total solar eclipse. It's right there in a conjunction. So people are much more sensitive than usual. And because it's in the sign of Aries, I think people are much more likely to lash out and to really express themselves when they're feeling hurt or frustrated or slightly misunderstood. They're going to lash out first and check their details later, if at all. So it's interesting that 2 of these houses that I've highlighted, and in fact, the 2 that most of it's happening in is over your 7th house and your 8th house. So the 7th house is about your partners and the people in your life, the people you like to spend time with, everyone that's not you. You're here, this is your body, this is every other body. So you got Mars going through here, and during this time you might notice that people in your life are a lot more Martian. They're a lot more wary, warlike. They're a lot stronger, they're a lot more defiant, a lot more rebellious, a lot more angry, and possibly a bit more hurt and shouty. And that's not to say you need to avoid people. I really don't I don't recommend you do that. What I would say is, if you're noticing a lot of people are angry around you, because I always think the 7th house is showing us what's going on in our 1st house. It's almost like a projection of what we're not facing ourselves. I would also say that during this Mercury retrograde, it would be really pertinent for you to ask yourself, where am I holding anger but not releasing it? Where am I actually secretly angry and really peed off that everyone else is able to release their anger, but I'm not? So I would take that as a message that actually it's time for you to release some of your frustration. I'm not saying you go all psycho and go into attack mode or anything like that, but just get real, get really, really real with what is frustrating you right now, and take action on it. I mean, you have a hell of a lot of discernment, and I think it's very easy for you to hide behind your views and to kind of like oversee things in quite a rational way, and you're quite thoughtful and really fit for purpose, like you organize things, and so you busy yourself so you don't have to let that anger out. But let's face it, we all experience anger, we all experience frustration. It just so happens that it feels like right now everyone else is able to express it a bit more effectively than you, and so you may well find that the people in your life right now who you might be having miscommunications with in terms of the retrograde, they're actually serving you. They're actually, it won't feel like it, granted, but they are showing you how to be an asshole. They are showing you how to let go. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but what I am suggesting is you just get really clear about what's not right. And then you do it in your own way. And you say, look, sorry, I've been hiding this from you. I am just as peed off as you are. You're shouting and getting all crazy. Fair enough. Let's calm down, sit down and talk about this, because this is also what's on my mind and it's time to resolve this. And so just get real, like really let it come out, but do it in a way that works for you. So what that is involving is a certain amount of self-talk, a bit more reflection. You might need to take yourself out of action for a little bit so that you can really come up with what is really bugging you. So yeah, there's my 2 pennyworth there. Now, you know, Mars is going to meet up with Saturn on the 10th. Again, that's a time when people are likely to be really, really up themselves and say, oh, this is how it is. They're going to really lay the law down as if they are in charge of you. And it's as if they are in charge of everything. So it feels like you are not actually experiencing that level of control, because it almost feels like you're referring to other people and their ideas as to how it should be. And so again, that could be an area of miscommunication, but also frustration. So from your perspective, you might find it useful to either avoid people that are really practicing this and being over the top with what they recommend people are doing, or that you start to say what is right for you and you start to be a lot more open about it. You know, it's also worth bearing in mind that the people in your life, in your 7th house, are represented by the sign of Pisces. Pisces people are really rubbish in general about being angry and letting anger out. So when they finally do let it out, it's usually really odd. You know, some people are able to say, no, that's not right. No, do it like this, do it like that. This is what I need. This is how I need it. This is when I need it. Pisces people, when they do express how peed off they are, it's just not like that. You know, they might sort of subterfuge. They might cause like this massive kind of big involved argument with masses of tentacles. And it's really, really difficult to get to the truth. And then when they do get to the truth of what's, hurting them, you know, there's all these kind of sort of angry, resentful, kind of really emotional arguments, embittered arguments. So yeah, again, it's really important for you to get really clear on what's right for you so that you don't have to listen to a whingy Pisces type. Now, there are other things that are going on, and this is where I think it gets much better. So yes, you do need to take some responsibility in managing how you're responding to these people in your life right now. And this will go, you know, Mars will be out of this area by the end of the month, as we're going into May, you know, and then Mars is going to be going through your 8th house, which does have a level of partnership still attached to it. But, you know, he's out of the 7th house. It feels less combative. You know, it feels a lot more peaceful. But, you know, this area here on the 13th and 14th, Uranus is in a semi-sextile to, Mercury's in a semi-sextile to Uranus. You know, Mercury's your ruler, but he's also, you know, about the mind and thinking and brain waves and inventiveness, and he's quick thinking and he delivers things. Uranus is a higher harmonic of Mercury. So it's like spirit ether version of Mercury. So like information comes so much faster from Uranus than it does from Mercury. It's telepathic, it's inventive at a much bigger scale. It's also deeply cosmic and quite shocking and quite arresting and stirring. And it's with Jupiter as well, which is like making everything so much bigger. So, from the 13th and 14th, there is this huge energy building with the semi-sextile between Mercury and Jupiter and Uranus. And they are building this area and this energy right up until the 21st. And, that is when, I would absolutely spend that week brainstorming, opening questions to yourself, like asking yourself these massive questions, like what's going to bring me the most joy? What is going to turn my life around in a magical way? What will give me freedom and a breakthrough in terms of my relationships? How can I release my resentments in a way that's going to up my life really quickly? You can ask all these sort of unanswerable questions and let them hang there. And then, during this week, see what comes up. This is a time when your mind is almost like downloading and having these huge breakthroughs. So I'm very excited about this. So to sum it up then, I really, and I haven't even mentioned the 6th house really, which is one of my highlighted areas. I mean, that's because you've got like Pluto here, and he's going to be in this square to the sun on the 21st. So it's also, worth factoring in the 6th house. So if I was just to go through these 4 houses, the 6th is about your sort of like day-to-day, how you manage your life. And, so that includes your health, your diet, your home, your work, your finances. The 7th is the people in your life. The 8th is that kind of shared space between you and your partners and your joint ventures, your joint finances, and your the expectations that they put on you. And then your 9th is that burst for freedom, that sense of I'm out of here, or this is where I'm going to expand. So in terms of this Mercury retrograde, which is really stirring here in terms of other people's expectations on you, and how you transact that area of space between their anger and their energy, and how you're coming out in your own way, like how you're able to bring yourself up and out. I just think this is really important time, because this is affecting your 6th house. If you're not able to talk to the people in your life that you're feeling are quite aggressive towards you right now, your 6th house life is likely to suffer. It's a lot harder to manage things at home when you've got a surly teenager type person in your life that you're meant to be in a relationship with. Or it's really difficult to keep on an even keel when there's angry people really close by. So I do see that this is all kind of tied together. One thing that I do see with this sort of heightened activity in this corner here, in the 8th house, is that I think there's an element of clearing that's going on in this month ahead. So in terms of where people have put expectations on you, on how you should behave, how you should be doing this, how you haven't done this yet, etc., this is a time for you to get really clear as to, does it belong to you? Is that a shared expectation? Or are you grown up enough to make your own? And how are you going to hand that expectation back to people that are putting it on you? So I do think things are going to get clearer and clearer. One last thing that I want to share with you is just on the 29th, Mars, which is obviously the ruler of this retrograde, Mars is going to come together with Neptune at 28 degrees. And I will be talking about this in the big overall forecast for sure. But the Mars and Neptune conjunction is often a time when we feel quite insecure, and we doubt ourselves a little bit. We don't feel very upbeat. We don't tend to be full of energy. Mars is all about energy, but Neptune kind of almost sucks the life out of Mars. So my advice to you here is that, because I also think that Mars and Neptune together, and also Mars in Pisces in general, it can be a bit manipulative, where people aren't getting their needs met, but they're not prepared to make any big changes themselves. It feels sometimes like those kinds of people, or that kind of energy, puts an expectation on you to fulfill their needs. So you might be conscious of where you're expecting other people to fulfill your needs, but you might also recognize that there's somebody very close to you that is doing this to you. If you do feel that somebody is putting their needs onto you to fulfill for them, and you decide that you're not going to do that, then this could be a really, really sensitive day. Between, say, the 27th of April right the way through to the 3rd of May is a time when I think you could, if you're with the right partner, you could get down to the bottom of what's been going on in terms of the inequality, in terms of how you're doing all the heavy lifting, and they're not sort of matching you in effort. So I do think things can really have a sharp breakthrough at that point. However, you'll have to kind of wade in there with great big welly boots on because it's really thick with emotion and guilt and all sorts of different things. So watch out for that. So all in all then, during this Mercury retrograde, I do see that there's an opportunity for a really big change and a shift in the way that your relationships are working. And I see them getting more functional. Now, yes, it's likely to get a bit tighter first, but how it releases, when it releases and how you get clearer during this time, that's the big key. And like I said, this beautiful Uranus and Jupiter expansion that's happening in your 9th house is definitely giving you that sense of, yes, I'm ready for freedom. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to move somewhere much bigger. And actually, if you guys are holding me back with your overly emotional guilt trips and things like that, then it's time for me to actually move on my own. So this really could be transforming, given that it's got a total solar eclipse in it as well, is an indication that it's likely to create some big changes in the way you do things. So anyway, hope that's helpful to you, Virgo ascendant, and sending you lots of love, and hopefully catch you in another forecast real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Libra ascendant. So how are you doing? So we're at the start of Mercury retrograde in Aries, in your opposite sign. Now, Aries is obviously a sign that's ruled by Mars. So this Mercury retrograde is going to have much more of a Mars feel to it. So in this forecast, a short forecast, what I'm talking about here is how you might want to manage the retrograde energy. Now, I really one of the things I'm quite passionate about is not saying, oh my God, there's a Mercury retrograde. It's all going to go terrible. Because I really don't find that very helpful. I know, yes, miscommunications can happen and things can go missing in the mail and stuff like that. But I also see it as this really great big opportunity for us to get a lot more creative. And if you think like Libra and ascendant energy is deeply creative, it's a time to rewrite your life. It's a time to stop thinking rationally and kind of tune in a lot more to your natural rhythms and flows. So from that start, I'm a lot more excited, but of course it is taking place in your 7th house. And it may well feel like, I imagine it feels like it's relentless in your 7th house right now. And I want to put a bit of a shout out to you, because I noticed with my last update, which was which one was it? Lost track. What was it? Oh, the eclipse one. I noticed in my eclipse forecast that I got so many more comments from people born with Libra ascendant, all saying, oh yeah, I really feel like you're hearing me. I feel like you're understanding me. This is a really difficult time. And I'd never noticed such a strong swell of a particular sign contacting me, but the Libra ascendants really have had it in this last month. So yeah, I think this is the month, and I will be saying this as well at some level in the April forecast as well. But I really do believe that we are coming to the end of maybe the Aries crisis point that's been going on in your chart for a really long time. Now, obviously, Chiron's still going to be there. The North Node is still also in Aries, but they are moving away from each other now, So let's explore this. Now, one of the things with Mercury retrograde, I think of it as the energy that is like the straw that breaks the camel's back. So if you think, and hopefully you're familiar with that phrase, but it's the idea that it's always a little thing that changes everything and kind of breaks down the structure. So in terms of Mercury retrograde, it's where we forget to check something. It's where we lose track of things, where we're not fully conscious about things. That's usually where things go wrong. And so in doing this reading, I'm looking at the areas of your chart that are most likely to be stressed out, A, by Mars, because this retrograde is taking place in the sign of Aries, B, by the planets that Mercury retrograde is connecting with, and also C, you know, like, where is all this energy right now? And, you know, as far as I can see, the big energy during this retrograde period is really taking place between the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th houses, which is why I'm not even mentioning any of the other houses at all. You know, it to me, it all feels like it's sort of external from you, you know. It's felt very personally, but it feels like everything that's happening is coming at you from outside. And so what hope and optimism can we derive from that? Where can we see the gift in the outside creating us to change, or inviting us to change, or inviting us to grow? How can we see the gift in that? So the way I'm looking at this is not so much about the retrograde itself, but the things that are stressing it out, because that will indicate, you know, where you might like drop something or miss the boat on something. So here goes. So first of all, I see the landscape as very much being from the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th houses. So it's a very creative space. The 5th house is obviously where you are looking for joy, creating joy for yourself, your self-creations, your birthings, everything you're passionate about, your relationships, your early relationships, your snogging and sex and making love and stuff. All that sort of intimacy is all there, you know, in the 5th. The 6th is how you're running your day-to-day, and how busy and industrious you are at being organized so that your health, your fitness, your house, your money, everything is kind of, all your bills are paid and stuff. That's an area of real tension this month, I have to say. And then the 7th is your ongoing relationships, your big relationships, how you see everyone else in comparison to you. Like, I guess part of that is like, I see myself over here. Everyone else is captured by the 7th house. And then the 8th house, this is a place of transformation, and it's also a place of shared values. You know, it's where we grow. It really is. So the first thing to really pay attention to, I think, is Mars and his positions, because Mars is being a little bit problematic. You know, Mars is making a couple of big conjunctions in this month ahead that are not easy or even nice conjunctions. You know, they're not conjunctions that people say, oh yeah, I really am pleased that I've got this conjunction necessarily. In fact, I've got one of them in my chart. It's one of my tightest conjunctions. But anyway, Mars is starting off on the 6th, making a semi-square to Mercury retrograde. So Mars and Mercury retrograde in a semi-square, it creates frustration. So, you know, at some level, the Mars aspect is saying, hurry up, you're slowing me down. I need to do something. Move, come on. Haven't you already done that? So it's almost like someone's nagging you, you know, and it's in between, like, you know, how you're running your house and then the person in it. So is it you that's shouting, or is it somebody else that's shouting at you saying, oh my God, you knew we had to leave at this time. What the hell have you been doing? And it's a bit like that, you know, it's really bonkers. And it's also this internal drive, and it could also be this internal frustration, which you might not be sharing. So you might be having all of this in your, like, inside. You might be thinking it while smiling sweetly at the person that's really peeing you off. And I would advise you don't do that, but find a way to kind of sit down and say, look, okay, we need to talk. Okay, it's time. But, you know, that angry voice that I so easily found, how did I find it that easily? In fact, you know, that's kind of what's going on. It's a really strong energy, and it's really motivating, and it will really help you to find out where your tension points are in a really great way. So I actually see this as an opportunity, but I understand it's quite exhausting, and I also understand it's not comfortable. I would also say, given that, you know, Mars is here and it's the 6th house, and 6th house is about health and fitness and stuff, this could be a time when you could really overexert yourself if you're working out at a gym or going running or doing something active. Which I feel really unqualified to speak of. But, you know, if you are doing things with your body, then absolutely take good care. Really watch your structures, because on the 8th of April, this semi-square is still really kind of there. And we've got the total solar eclipse where, there is this like stirring energy that could get us to kind of overwork things. But then on the 10th, we've got this conjunction, like Mars is in a tight conjunction, an exact conjunction with Saturn. So Mars is pushing, Saturn is the structures. You're pushing yourself too much. And you may well find that everything at home almost feels like it's collapsing. There's too much going on and not enough time to do it. And it maybe feels, given that Mercury's retrograde through your partner house, maybe it feels like that your partners aren't participating. They're not helping. All they're doing is adding to your workload. So it's not very glamorous. It's not very romantic. It actually feels like what's happening is you're getting very, very clear about where you're taking on too much, where other people aren't doing enough, and where you've had enough. And it doesn't have to be a break. It doesn't have to be, a big thing. But what is coming up is this need to just talk about it, and this need to just get really clear, like who is doing what for each other and who is doing too much. And if it's you, which I'm guessing it is, because most people that feel a little bit put on are the ones that like listen to astrology. It's not the ones that are already feeling kind of light and free. They're often just doing their own thing. So often it's when we're already down or a little bit stressed out that we're actually wanting answers. So yeah, it's probably you that's doing too much. So it's important to watch out for Mars. And then as Mars goes through the month, right at the end, after the retrograde and during the shadow period, Mars makes a connection with Neptune at 28 degrees. Now, Mars and Neptune together, this is the one I've got in my chart, so I know it quite well. It's an area where we may well feel doubt, like a lot of self-doubt. Like Mars is about our energy and like are we able to maintain our energy? Are we able to keep going and not stop? So Mars is about our vitality and Neptune is about our creativity. And to be fair, Neptune kind of sucks the life out of Mars. It really does. I mean, yes, it's creative. Yes, it's spiritual, blah, blah, blah. But so you could have an absolute passion for spirituality and really use that energy. However, this aspect needs a lot of encouragement. It needs a lot of confidence, and it needs to be able to keep its own rhythm. It needs to be able to fill itself back up. So with the Mars and Neptune, I often see it in charts of people who have autoimmune kind of things, where they kind of run out. It's like there's it's, how your mobile phone or your cell phone, if you're in America, after a while, the battery just seems to wear out, and same with your laptops, So the Mars and Neptune energy, it's kind of a running out of steam, we're kind of, so that energy in your 6th house is showing up. So whatever's going on during this retrograde period, it's important to really pace yourself, so you're not overdoing it and you're not going to exhaust yourself. Really allow yourself the chance to either lower your standards in this month ahead. And that's not a bad thing, actually, just to kind of let yourself off. Like, do you have to iron everything? Do you have to wash everything at this particular time? Or could you just give yourself a bit of a break? I would really encourage you to have a bit of a break and to ease off, because the total solar eclipse, all this energy here is massive. And there are other things, I think, that are more exciting, that are likely to bring you up and lift you up. So, given the choice, are you going to kind of knuckle down and do those things that are actually going to wear you out and keep you at the same level? Or are you ready to lift yourself up in an unexpected way? Yes, some things might go astray at home and be a bit chaotic. However, this lifting energy could be just what you need. So that's what I would recommend. So yeah, the Mars stuff, watch your 6th house, really watch your energy levels, your diet, get somebody else, like pay someone to come and clean for you. Please just give yourself a break. Now, this bit here, this is the sensitive bit where the total solar eclipse is happening. So you may well find that people from your 7th house, like partners and stuff, under the immensity of this energy, the fact that Chiron's there, On the 15th, Chiron and Mercury retrograde come together. You know, the North Node is nearby. This is all really highly funneled stuff. Feels like the people around you are aware of their hurts and pains. They may well be lashing out at you still, if you still got them in your life. You may also now find that through them, you're getting clear about what's not right for you and what hurts you've been holding on to and what you're being triggered by and what you are now ready to let go of. So actually, although it might feel a bit raw with these people in your life, I think they're helping you get to the core of what you are ready and willing to let go of. This could be a really clearing month. And, you know, I am going to be talking more about April in my April forecast, and also about Uranus and Jupiter that's also happening. Now, on that day, when Uranus and Jupiter come together, that's on the 21st, which is a big day. But leading up to it, on the 13th and 14th, Mercury retrograde is in a semi-sextile to Mercury retrograde is semi-sextile to Uranus and Jupiter. And then for the next week, like, these two planets are coming closer and closer together. So this is an area of massive change, and it's like the energy is building. So really do observe what thinking is going on for you, Libra and Ascendants. Like, notice what's going on in your relationships. Notice what's going on in terms of how much you're taking on and how much you're prepared to take on. Like, is it really what you want? Because this week from the 13th to the 21st is massive, and it's going to shift a lot of stuff in such a remarkable way that you may well end your year in a completely different place with a completely different story and feeling really quite cool. Now, you can do that within your existing relationship or even outside of it. But the key thing is recognizing what's not working so something can shift and change. And this is where I just see this Uranus and Jupiter in the 8th house really exposing that and expanding that for you. And of course, change doesn't always sound like fun. It sounds like hard work sometimes. But yeah, this is, it almost comes to a point where you can't think of anything you'd much rather do. So I think that's really quite cool. I've almost exhausted myself in giving you that reading. So I think I might need to step outside. I guess the last thing I want to say, you know, on the big day of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, we've got Pluto at 2 degrees in Aquarius and the Sun at 2 degrees Taurus. That is really bringing up a lot of control issues and a desire for us to feel like we have more control, in particular, in terms of where we're going to put our romantic and our sexual energies. And I think, you know, it's safe to say you want to have a much deeper and more responsive, sensuous life. You know, you would like that aspect of your life to create more change for you. I'm guessing it's a call for passion. And then on that day, Venus in a conjunction with Chiron in your 7th house could actually give you the shared honesty and that sense of shared vulnerability where you open up together. I mean, that could be the biggest transforming aspect of your whole year on the 21st, where like everything comes out and it's up for healing, and it's done with forgiveness, generosity, and compassion. Who knows how this is going to play out, Libra ascendant? I mean, I don't know what your chart looks like, you know, but I hope this is helpful for you anyway, and sending you lots of love, because I recognize, you know, you really need it right now. And yeah, this will pass. This time of intense scrutiny, it will pass. It will get easier. And I'm going to be there doing more forecasts for you. So, you know, count on me. But anyway, lots and lots of love to you. Bye for now. Okay, so on to Scorpio ascendant. Hi, Scorpio ascendant. How are you doing? So this is all about the Mercury retrograde that's starting on the 1st of April at 27 degrees 13 in the sign of Aries, roughly about here, and going backwards retrograde all the way back to 1558 in Aries, when he comes out of the retrograde on the 25th of April. And then thereafter, Mercury will be going forwards again. And this is known as being in the shadow as he's coming back out of the retrograde space, before going like fully forwards and into a new space altogether. So all the details about the retrograde is here. But what I wanted to express, I guess, in this forecast is, my thoughts about Mercury retrograde is that it's often the straw that breaks the camel's back. So, Mercury retrograde, it absolutely, it's a time when the little details of life are sometimes ignored or rushed. During Mercury retrograde, we often work so fast and so quickly that we forget to do our due diligence. We forget to check on something. We don't quite, cross our T's and dot our I's and stuff. And so I think of it as the straw that breaks the camel's back energy. Wherever we are weak in our charts, the Mercury energy, the Mercury retrograde energy can show up a little inconsistency, a little miscommunication, and boom, there it is. Something happens. Now, this is particularly spiky this time because it's in the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars, which is also one of your rulers. And so I'm really paying attention to the position of Mars in terms of this forecast. So it's not just about Mercury retrograde, but it's about Mars's position within this retrograde and how it's working its energies out. And you'll notice here that I've kind of shaded these 4 houses. Oops. And the reason why I've done that is because on the 21st of April, we've got what I've called a big day. And it is a big day. Not only have we got the Uranus and Jupiter conjunction in your 7th house, and it's coming into its conjunction for the first time in 13.5 or whatever years, on average, I think it's 13.5, 13.6 years. So it's come together for the first time in a really long time. And it's really a big conjunction. It's really something it's really something that's changing, it creates a beautiful change in consciousness. But on this day as well, we've also got Pluto at 2 degrees in the sign of Aquarius, in a square to the sun at 2 degrees in the sign of Taurus. We've also got Venus in an exact conjunction with Chiron in this space here where the total solar eclipse is taking place, by the way, on the 8th, and also where Mercury is in a conjunction with Chiron on the 15th. So it's like this point in your chart is so tightly impacted right now and has been the whole year. So we had the North Node and Chiron come into a conjunction, all the way leading up from the end of January, coming into sharp focus, on the 19th of Feb, still really sharp and deep and strong on the 5th of March. Now it's easing off. And in this month ahead, we've got the sun connecting with it. We've got Mercury connecting with it. We've got Venus connecting with it. And we've got the total solar eclipse going on. So this part is really, really, really strong. So we've got these 4 areas, these 4 segments of your birth chart that I think seem to capture a lot of this energy, the energetic of the times in perspective, in the perspective of your ascendant. So it's the 4th house, the 5th house, the 6th, and the 7th. The 4th is, how at home are you right now? How do you feel at home? Like Pluto here on the edge of your home is creating a sense of transformation. This need to absolutely transform the way you are living and to live in a completely different way. It's changing the consciousness at home, maybe changing the structure of your family. It feels like there are big shifts going on. And then you've got the 5th house where Mars is working through, and currently you've got Saturn and also Neptune. Now, Mars is going to make a conjunction with both of these during this month. I would say this is pretty much one of these loose end areas that's going to be really stressed in this month ahead. And we've got this very tight little bit here that's also important. So in terms of like looking at the Mercury retrograde in the sign of Aries, really what I'm going to do is let you know of the really sensitive dates to watch out for and how you might want to manage them so that, you can avoid some of the pitfalls and prepare for some of the benefits and opportunities. So I'm going to kind of dive right in and hopefully it'll all make sense. So the first thing to really mention, I think, is the on the 6th of April, we've got the semi-square with Mars and Mercury retrograde. Now, the semi-square creates a feeling of frustration. It creates a bit of an angry voice. It's like, oh my God, hurry up, be a bit faster. But, actually what's going on is, you've got something going on in the 6th, something going on in the 5th. The 5th is about the creativity. It's your desire to be passionate. It's your desire to create. It's your desire to do something amazing. And then Mercury retrograde in the 6th is kind of like, oh my God, your passions, all of the things you're doing, they're getting out of control, and we've got to kind of bring it tighter together. So there's this feeling of tension because you're not able to do as much as you want to do. Maybe your projects are spilling over into your normal everyday life, and it's just creating a lot of tension. As far as, this semi-square goes, I would say it's not that difficult between the 5th and the 6th. It could be much worse. Now, if you've got children, which I know a lot of people that watch the show do, the children obviously show up in the 5th. So you might find the children and their passions and habits are like taking over your home. So again, you might want to have words with them. But essentially, it's very much where the creativity is really wanting to come out and it's not fully expressed. And also, Mercury retrograde is, I don't know, creating a bit of havoc and a little bit of discomfort at home. There's a lot going on in the 6th house energy. And if you think the 6th house is where we manifest a normal life, it's where we practice actually at living peacefully, living cleanly, having a lovely health, having a lovely diet, managing everything well, paying your bills on time and stuff like that. Mercury retrograde through this could actually be quite difficult. So you really do want to, manage your Mars energy and really pay attention to what's going on here. What's going on with what triggers you, given that Mercury is going retrograde right over Chiron, right? It's retrograding. We've got the solar eclipse. We've got so much energy in this area. Wherever we are triggerable right now is where our house and our straight, easy living, our organized way of life, our healthy bodies, that's a stress point. Whew. So, given that Mars rules this house altogether, I would suggest you do something with your passions to get them out. You use your passions as much as possible. You use your sensuous energy as much as possible. You are romantic and passionate, and that you take action on the things you want to be creative with. I think that's almost like a safety net. It's almost like a release valve, your creativity and your sensuous energy. The total solar eclipse then on the 8th is definitely stirring things up. It does give you a chance for a really good new start, which I think is very valuable. In particular, if you're talking about health and healing, given that, Chiron is all about health and healing and also showing where you get out of health and healing if you don't pay attention to it. So having a really strong feeling, a really strong intention to heal and transform your body, I think is absolutely really feasible. And worth doing. Between the 13th and 14th, we've got a beautiful semi-sextile between Mercury retrograde and the emerging Uranus and Jupiter conjunction. And so what I see from the 13th right the way through to the 21st on that really big day is this growing week of energy. I say week of energy, like making it sound like it's weak. It's not, but like 7 days, 8 days of energy that is growing the strength and possibility and magnitude of the Uranus and Jupiter energy together. It is amazing. It's bringing something in. It's bringing something up in a really, really strong way. So I love that. I think it's an energy that is full of possibility for you. In particular, in terms of changing the way you're relating to people. It's creating a breakthrough. Like if you're single and you're really wanting to meet the love of your life or to absolutely connect in with the best people in the world, this energy is all for you. If you think of the 7th house, it represents everyone that's not you in your life. So, you've had Uranus there for ages, and it's safe to say that people in your life haven't seemed as responsible. They've been a little bit wackier of late and a little bit more willful and a little bit more independent than usual. You've had Jupiter there as well, showing a lot of goodwill. I think since Jupiter's gone in there, it's really helped you actually to understand the people in your life and almost come on board with them and say, yeah, let's get some freedom together. I mean, that does make sense. You can live more freely together. You can create some lovely freeing experiences. But it's not just about your partners. The 7th house is about your friends. It's also about your enemies. So they may well show up in quite a quick and big and challenging way and be done with, dispatched quite quickly as well, given the Uranus energy. But I also think in terms of finding customers, if you're looking in terms of your business, and it's describing the people that are coming into your midst, the Uranus energy, astrology people could be coming into your midst, people that are interested in astrology, in higher consciousness, in new agey things, in old agey things, in consciousness, like lessons in consciousness. It's all being raised up. It's all being sort of excitably worked on. I think that's kind of cool. Jupiter, is all about feeling good and feeling expanded and excited. So yeah, you could be having some great people coming into your world. So I actually think whatever you're trying to bring about right now might actually come about better with the right levels of collaboration. So, if you're creating a plan to collaborate and to bring in the best people into your life, this is the month to do it. And how might you do it? Well, the Mercury retrograde energy in your 6th house, when it's connecting to Jupiter and Uranus, if I was in your shoes around the 13th, 14th, well, definitely around the time of the total solar eclipse, then on the 13th, if I was in your shoes, which I am because I've got Scorpio ascendant as well, is I would be asking myself big questions about how can I enjoy life with the best people in the world? How can I bring the most aligned and passionate and expansive people with the most incredible consciousness into my world? How can I reflect the consciousness that I want to see in the world? And ask these massive searching questions and kind of leave them hanging in the air and know full well that life will answer those questions for you and bring you that level of attention and energy and excitement and expansion that you're looking for. So I see this as a huge, huge opportunity. So, suffice to say, a lot of Mercury retrograde updates, if for Scorpio ascendant, are likely to say, oh, it's going to be really bad in your 6th house. It's, oh, yeah, health's going to suffer. This is going to happen, blah, blah. But let's look at the bigger picture, which is, you know what? There's something so much bigger out there. Yes. Do you know what? When the right people come in, my life would be much better, actually, if I was in top health. So maybe I will pay some attention here for sure. And I can also see that if I've got the right people in my life, actually, my health will sort itself out. If I'm feeling magnificent because I'm in the right vibrational frequency in terms of my friendships, in terms of my collaborations, and if I'm expressing myself creatively, I fully believe, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, I hope you do, but if not, I'm totally cool with that. Each to their own. But I fully believe that when we're in the right vibrational frequency, when we're feeling really free and really unscathed and really unstuck, we naturally come into our right health. And it might take a moment or two. It might take a week, a month. It might take a year. But these things, these subtle changes happen. And it happens because we are consciousness. Consciousness is coming through us and we've got a chance to work with it. And, our body catches up later. So, yeah, I think relax in the creativity. Be as industrious and creative as you want. And yes, you are likely to feel the tension of doing too much for sure. And yet you are attracting the best people into your world. And yes, that's stirring that things are going to change at home. Of course, it's going to have a knock-on effect at home, because if you have the very best, most positive people in your world that are creating change, that are committed to honoring a higher level of consciousness, that is going to filter into your home life too. So Scorpio ascendant, this is quite a cosmic one, I have to say. I am not that worried for you. I think this is a really good set of opportunities. Yes, it could get a bit wonky, so maybe don't overindulge. But the one thing I will say, and that is that this aspect here is a little bit tricky. Mars in a conjunction with Neptune is discouraging, so you may well put a lot of energy into your creations and then at the last minute feel very deeply discouraged, and like lose that sense of confidence. So what I would say in terms of this aspect here is it's really important to find ways to create and to make love and to enjoy yourself and create more joy for yourself without judging yourself. So the moment you're going to judge the creations you're doing and how much you're doing and whether you're doing enough and does it pass this metric or that metric, the moment you put any kind of standards or levels on it, you're going to like take yourself on a downer. So just for this month, can you please find a way to create for the sake of creation? Can you just create for the sake of knowing that it's putting you into a flow, knowing that it's putting you into an alignment? Can you create for the sake of just creating, knowing it's what your heart desires and what you want right now is to experience deep levels of joy? And if you can do that, then this discouragement is unlikely to affect you too deeply. So there you go. I hope that's helpful for you. Tune in for more updates because I'll be doing an April forecast and also the consciousness one, Jupiter and Uranus later on in April as well. So lots of love to you. Take care and speak to you real soon. Bye for now. So on to Sagittarius. What is going on for you in terms of this first Mercury retrograde in 2024? Well, it's an interesting one because obviously Sagittarius, the Sagittarius rising, your rising sign is a fire sign. All three retrogrades this year are in the signs of fire signs. So it's a big one. It starts at 27 degrees in the sign of Aries. And of course, that's in a trine to, your first house. And it's going to go back to 15 degrees, 58 in the sign of Aries, which is midway through your first house. So, this trine energy, where it's taking place in this place to create joy, this place to experience joy and passion, to have fun, to really let your creativity come into its own. I think it's helping you to rewrite how you think about yourself. I really think it's there to show you, I create, therefore I am. Not I think, therefore I am, which is a very, funnily enough, Mercury direct thought, isn't it? Mercury, I think I am. I think I am. Mercury retrograde in your fifth, it's like, I create, therefore I am. That just came to me. So anyway, one of the things that occurs to me with Mercury retrograde is when we are tight, when we are under pressure, when we are forcing things, when we're working super fast, lots of errors happen. We are less diligent. We don't do our due diligence. We're not very discerning. We muck things up. And Sagittarius ascendants, you don't tend to have the highest levels of completion. You're much better at starting things than you are completing things, unless you've got something really strong and organized in your birth chart, and you might do. But, as a general rule of thumb, you're a lot more laissez-faire and kind of start things and kind of throw them up in the air and see where all the pieces land kind of person. And that's cool. But, with Mercury retrograde, it's these little bits that we drop that might cause us the problems, So what I want to look at in terms of this forecast is, where are your areas that are vulnerable in this retrograde time? Where are your areas of vulnerability? Or where are these areas where you're super tight, where you're overworked, where you're not looking after yourself so much? Because these are the areas that may well create a bit of a Mercury retrograde episode. So it's just to keep you, functioning properly still. Now, from your perspective, you might not really care if things go wrong so much as other ascendant signs, and I do take that on board. So it's a lot less serious for you because you're a lot more kind of relaxed and creative around it. So that's also good. Anyway, the thing that really occurs to me is the Mercury retrograde in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. So Mars is also really important for us to read in terms of this chart. Also, your ruler is Jupiter. So we also need to pay quite a lot of attention to Jupiter as well. So Mercury's relationship with Mars is important, and where is that taking place? And then Mercury's relationship with Jupiter is also important. So yeah, let's unpack this. Now you'll see that I've included 4 wedges of your wheel. I've highlighted them, and these are the ones that I think most of the energy is taking place in. So Aquarius, the 3rd house, it's very much about your community. How far are you reaching into your community right now? How much transformation are you getting from your community? Given that Pluto is right at the start, that feels like this area is quite activated right now. The 4th house then is about your home and how things are working out at home. You've currently got Saturn going through your 4th. You've also got Neptune in your 4th. And so these are creating like a new sense of disparity, I would say, in terms of how you're living your life. On the one hand, it feels like, it's really difficult to pinpoint where is home and where you belong. And, at some level, you're kind of spiritual about where you're home, but not necessarily very grounded. And you might be very idealistic about where you live, but again, it lacks the grounding. And then with Saturn here, there is also this growing need to have a really settled, stable home. So you're kind of in a schizophrenic kind of, like one minute you're like this and the next you're like this. And, given that Pluto is in this area of community and the community environment, there's a lot here within these 2 houses to talk about belonging. Now, it just so happens that Mars, one of my watch planets for this particular forecast, is going through this area of your chart. So on the 6th of April, he is going into a semi-square with Mercury retrograde in your 5th. Now, your 5th is about the joy you're experiencing. It's about how you're creating joy. It's about how you're enjoying joy, how you are using your inbuilt creativity. What are you passionate about? What are you flowing with? It's also where you make love and where you have your intimacy. It's also very much about your children. And also your pets as well, so having Mercury retrograde, I have to say, the day that Mercury went into its shadow on the 19th of March, one of our cats went missing and is still currently missing 9 days later. So yeah, your pets can go missing. This retrograde, Mercury is also very much about children and also quite possibly pets, because for a lot of people, our pets are our children as well. So yes, it can really affect how our children are behaving and also our pets. Are we missing anyone? Are we connecting into them? Are we missing a beat with them somehow? How can we get into a better unity with them? Because the retrograde is throwing our thoughts and kind of messing up our communications a little bit. And then the 6th house, it's about our day-to-day working. Are we ready for a breakthrough? I would say with Uranus and Jupiter here, I would say we're really ready for a breakthrough. So anyway, the Mars Mercury semi-square, which kind of kicks it off a little bit, really sort of encourages the miscommunications of the Mercury retrograde to come up. To me, that is saying that what is going on with the things that you've created and given birth to, i.e. your children, your pets, and also your creativity, it's got out of balance quite seriously. And it's very difficult to manage in terms of your home. And your idealism is, let them play. Let them be free. Let's do this. Let's be creative. Let's feel all fluffy and idealistic and creative. And yet there is this very strong resonance that you want things to be right and correct and orderly. You are wanting to feel very rooted and stable. And so as Mars is going through here, and in a semi-square to Mars, there's a lot of frustration because you are not feeling that sense of belonging like you would like. And yes, everything is creative, but it's like, it's just not gelling so much. So there's a lot of tension there. On the 8th, there's the total solar eclipse happening here in the 5th house, which is absolutely You know, anywhere where there's tension about your creations, that's coming up. But it's also creating this exciting impetus. You know, the total solar eclipse, it's a new moon in Aries, but Chiron's there. But it's an opportunity for you to clear any pain associated with healing, with birthing, with your creations that are not quite coming forwards like you're hoping for them to. You know, this is creating this sense of rebirth, like a rethinking of this whole situation. So this is exciting, but it's likely that people around you are lashing out a little bit because, you know, this is Aries Mercury retrograde going through your 5th. You might get a lot of back chat from your kids. Also, you know, from your pets. Your pets might not be so, you know, beautifully behaved. So there is this feeling of lashing out. And maybe it's the things that you've created that are lashing out. Maybe you've created a team. Maybe you've created a book. Maybe you've created all these different things. And whether they're lashing out with words or not, it just feels like there is pain associated with all these things that you've birthed. And I wonder what you need to clear to feel better about that. So anyway, around the 13th, 14th, there is this kind of change point. And I'm really excited about this because this is when Mercury retrograde connects into the semi-sextile to Uranus and Jupiter. So Mercury retrograde's here, Uranus and Jupiter are coming closer and closer into their exact conjunction. And the energies kind of super speed. You know, Mercury is about thinking and communication. Uranus is a higher harmonic of thinking and is super cosmic, is out there. It's connected with Jupiter, which is faith-based, and it's also expanded and it's hopeful and optimistic. There is this feeling of a lightening. There is this feeling of a clearing, a quickening. Things are quickening. Your realizations are quickening. There is this sense of hope. What I would absolutely recommend to you, and I'll be doing myself for sure, is between this week, the 13th or 14th to the 21st, start asking yourself the big questions. What is going to bring me the changes I really seek to see? How can I find clearance on this? How can I feel flipping brilliant about what I'm doing with my children or my pets or my creations? All this stuff. How can I feel excited by this? How can I feel really motivated by this? How can this just, I don't know, just be the right solution for me? So ask yourself these massive questions and expect that life is going to give you these answers because everything is building up. And the moment you try and hold on to it, the thread goes. But when you're expanded about it, which is more Mercury retrograde, you know, Mercury direct is, I want the answer. Is it this or this? It's factual. It looks for a finite answer. Mercury retrograde, it's imaginal. So you've got the power of your imagination and the cosmos working together. Now, on the 21st, there is a big day. Uranus and Jupiter are coming together. I will be talking about that in my Uranus-Jupiter vid and also with my Aries forecast. So I don't want to, my April forecast, sorry. So I don't want to sort of labor it too much. But suffice to say, with Pluto at 2 degrees and the Sun at 2 degrees and also Venus and Chiron together here, this energy is being highlighted once again, and it's still connected to Mercury retrograde. This is a real turning point day with huge energy. So, you know, mark it in your diary, you know, expect to break through at something that has been difficult. Last thing then I really want to bring forwards for you as a possibility, and that is Mars in a conjunction to Neptune. Now, Mars is the ruler of this retrograde. It's in a conjunction with Neptune. Mars and Neptune together aren't very comfortable in a conjunction, to be honest. Yes, there's a fervency for spirituality and creativity and idealism. And yes, you know, people with these two together in a conjunction can be absolutely idealistically possessed and also deeply creative and spiritual. And yet there's also a despondency. There's also a lack of articulation at times. Sometimes there's fuzzy thinking. Sometimes the energy goes up and down and it's really wavering. You know, it's a time when we can often lose faith and courage in ourselves. And I think it's also one of the precursors. It's an energy when it comes together that we can actually sicken from. You know, it's not full of vitality. It's full of emotions and it's full of unexpressed emotions, almost secret emotions. So what I would say around this time, because obviously, it's a really big deal and there's Mercury retrograde going on, it's likely that things are mysterious. Communications at home aren't going to be that forthcoming. And you may well feel really despondent because what you've been working towards and wanting to move on just feels like there's no movement. And it's like, what did I do wrong? So if you can possibly remember that question, what did I do wrong? And replace it with, what could I do right now that could transform this easily? That's your best bet. Do not let this opportunity, this Mars Neptune conjunction, really bring your energy down. If you can remember it's coming up, start asking yourself questions. How can I see clearly right now? What do I need to see clearly right now that I don't know? What is it that I'm ready to see that I haven't been ready to see before? And it's about unveiling the mystery to you. So hopefully that's helpful to you, Sagittarius ascendant. Obviously from the 25th, Mercury's already started to go forwards again, going direct, but he's still in the retrograde shadow. But, you are already on your way towards this much bigger sense of excitement in the world. So there you go. Hope that's helpful, and hope to see you soon another time. Lots of love. Hey there, Capricorn ascendant. So let's have a look at your Mercury retrograde forecast. Now, this is the first full Mercury retrograde of 2024. And as you might have known, if you've seen the earlier part of the video, all three of them are really fire-based Mercury retrogrades. And so there's a real need, I think, to really understand how to manage this energy. One thing that really occurs to me is this retrograde is happening at just the most busiest part of your chart right now, as is for everyone else. And so I think with Mercury retrograde, it's very much about the bits and pieces that we're doing. And, people talk about emails going missing, files going missing, delays in deliveries and things like that. They're all the little things that when they don't happen on time or in the way you're expecting, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. So in terms of this particular Mercury retrograde reading, really what I'm trying to do is work out where your biggest levels of tensions are right now, because wherever your biggest levels of tensions are, that shows really where you might drop the ball, where something might go a bit awry, not go as, according to plan. So a big a big thing to look at. Now, one of the other things I really noticed during this time is that a lot of the cosmic or planetary weather is taking place in this spot here. If you imagine here, we've got Pluto, then we've got Saturn and Mars at this current point in time. We've also got Neptune, and then here we've got the North Node, and obviously we've got Chiron going through here, Mercury retrograde. We've also got the total solar eclipse, which is also happening here. Mercury retrograde is going to make a conjunction here as well to Chiron. So it's absolutely really, really tight here as well. And then the other thing that's really going on during this during this Mercury retrograde time is we've also got the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction. So there's just so very much going on now. Most of these are kind of listed here. So we've got the total solar eclipse, the Mercury conjunction to Chiron. Now, you'll see that there's no mention of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction specifically. Now, the reason being is it's happening on the 21st of April. And as far as I can see, it is a big day. On the 21st of April, we've got Uranus and Jupiter meeting up for the first time in 13 and a half years. We've also got Pluto here in an exact square to the sun. That's very much about hidden tensions. And, who's in charge of your life? Is it you or is it some kind of outside source? And we've also got Venus in a conjunction with Chiron on that day too. So there's these two very specific and very strong conjunctions and a super strong exact square to the sun from Pluto. So, this big day, the area that it's spanning is really, really broad. It's like this third of your chart, so this is the thing that I'm really focusing on. Now, you can see here, I've put in the dates, the start time and ending time of the retrograde. So it starts at 27 degrees in the sign of Aries on the 1st of April, and then it's appearing to move backwards. And then on the 25th of April, it gets to 1558 degrees in the sign of Aries, and it starts moving forwards. Now, even though it's moving forwards, it doesn't actually come past this point, which is known as the shadow, the retrograde shadow. It doesn't come past this point until the 13th of May. So, you know, even towards the end of the month, we are technically, it still feels a little bit retrograde-y. You know, and as I'm recording this, I mean, Mercury started to go into the retrograde shadow on the 19th of March. And it certainly has felt like some of the themes of the retrograde have been coming up. So, you know, Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. And so Mars also seems very, very important to pay attention to. The first thing I really notice in terms of managing the retrograde energy is this sharp, I'm going to say sharp, semi-square to Mars on the 6th. So you've got Mars here, Mercury here, and they're in what's known as a semi-square. It's 45 degrees difference. And, you know, with these semi-squares comes frustrations and short tempers. It's not as intractable as a square or an opposition, but these things flare up very, very quickly. They can die down very quickly. However, you know, Mars is about taking action, and Mercury, which is quite possibly bumbling, you know, it's, you know, the Mercury function, the ability for us to articulate our ideas really clearly, our ability to, you know, answer things quickly and succinctly. It's kind of reversed. It's turned on its head. And so what I really think is happening, you know, let's say from the 4th and just beyond the 6th, leading almost into the total solar eclipse, is we've got this rashness. Now, given that this retrograde is also pretty much in a conjunction with Chiron the whole time that Mercury is retrograde, you know, when people are thinking things and they're also feeling rushed by that semi-square to Mars, you know, they're not working from a good place. They're working from their hurts. You know, Mercury in a conjunction with Chiron, it reminds you of your hurts. But because Mercury is retrograde, you know, actually it feels like we're going back over our hurts. You know, it feels like somebody's pulling us back into a place that, quite frankly, we feel really vulnerable in. And, you know, given, you know, Capricorn ascendants, you know, you're not the kinds of people that really want to go back into the past unless there's a really good reason. So I do think as we're going into the month of April, from the perspective of the retrograde, it's really important to, you know, watch our words. In particular, like where it's happening for you, Capricorn ascendant, is it's really coming up at home. So it's like there's this absolute impatience in terms of the home. And you may well find that the person that's an aggressor, or the person that's saying, hurry up, answer me, they're people from your local environment, you know. So you may well find that you need to pay a little bit more attention to the people who you're interacting with in terms of your community space. You know, in terms of how I would do it if I was in your shoes right now, I think I would be focusing more on people who I know don't have a beef, you know, focusing on the people who are the kindly people within your community, the people that really want your help, not necessarily people who are sick or ailing or resentful. You want to be impacted by the very best people within your group. Now, also given the nature, you know, that Mars is going through your 3rd house, and obviously I've spoken about this also from the actual month ahead perspective, not so much the retrograde perspective, but, you know, there is a lot going on in terms of how you're building your visibility in the local, I guess, marketplace right now. And Mars is getting you to work faster and faster. And, you know, with the semi-square to Mercury, I think what's happening is, A, you're coming out of your home a little bit in the homes, and it just feels like there's tension there. But B, it feels like it feels like there's no pleasing some people. So again, be really cautious about, why you're doing stuff within the local environment. I do see that you're raising your game right now. And you probably don't want to over promise, under deliver, and also if you're waiting for other people to get involved, or if you're working on a multidisciplinary team, again, you might want to consider the fact that people might not be working to quite the same level of quality as you're expecting, and misunderstandings are occurring. So I would absolutely recommend that in terms of getting involved in the local, community and your local environment, getting out and about and stuff, that you really minimize your exposure and minimize the outputs that you've said you're going to do. Maybe don't commit to things, but turn up to support things, so that way you're not really letting anyone down. No one's really letting you down, but you still get the chance to, share your energies. Now, one of the things that I really like in particular about this Mercury retrograde is it's really rethinking how you live at home, and it's really giving you an opportunity to get to the bottom of a few core issues. Now, given that Chiron is there and the total solar eclipse is there, what I really think is likely to happen is you've been really wanting a new start, a sense of release from some of the old past patterns. Now, Chiron in the fourth, and I've been saying this pretty much all year, with Chiron in the fourth area of your home, chances are stuff from your childhood's been coming up, and you've been facing some of the things that you've encountered. Maybe you're realizing some of your belief systems are really tightly locked into the ideas that you were given about yourself from your parents, from your grandparents, from your family narrative. So I actually think that with this Mercury retrograde, you've got this chance to rethink your position within your family and rethink your position within your home. And of course, that is actually going to be feeding directly into your beliefs and behaviors. You can't really make any real changes about how you are at home, how you're perceived at home, until you change your behaviors, and which come from your beliefs. So to me, it feels like this Mercury retrograde is giving you the opportunity to completely wind back time and identify the errant beliefs that you've captured about yourself. And they probably are just little things that your parents said to you in your childhood, like, for instance, God, you're always so slow, you're just like your father, or all these things. And that they're not a compliment, right? That they're coming from a sense of frustration. And it's funny how we pick up on these things and carry them into our everyday adult world. So this is a very deep acting Mercury retrograde for you. It really is deep acting. It's here to help you have a much greater level of stability in your life. And of course, if you feel a lot more stable because you've been able to identify what's been going on and look at it at a much deeper level, what I really see is that your home life can just really spring up from there. It's big. Now, this part of your chart has been touched on a lot this year. Chiron in the North Node. I gave a message back then, the total solar eclipse, how that's working in your chart. You are due a breakthrough in this area. So, maybe as you're listening to this, you might choose to think, okay, what is it that needs to shift at home? What is it that I've said I wanted to shift and haven't actually really done anything about it yet? What is it that gives me a sore spot? What is it that makes me freeze up every time I see my mum phone me, or whatever it is? Whatever that core thing is, this is a persistent energy that seems to be coming back. Now, the great thing is, as you're really engaging in it, and as you allow yourself to be just naturally changed, I always think with this kind of energy, especially with the total solar eclipse, that, where we're engaging in it and using the energy in a proactive way, we get a light version, like Coke Light or Coca-Cola Max Strength, like, how do you want the energy to come in? Do you want it to really challenge you? In which case, do nothing, like go, la, 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 I don't want to know. And then you'll get the maximum of effects of, Chiron and the sun and the moon together, which could be quite devastating. if you're not sort of participating in it, it's like life will say, oh, hey, that person's got a lot of that coding going on in their chart. Oh, there's an angry person over there. And it's like, the way I see it is, life is matching you up. You're like a lightning rod for it. But where you're discharging some of this built up energy, actually where you're heading is more mastery of the Chiron energy. And Chiron does become a master. Chiron, okay, it kills him in the process, but he learns to work with his vulnerability. Chiron can surpass his core wounds. He makes himself vulnerable, and then he's out of pain. So yeah, I would say whatever's going on, whilst you might choose to shy away from things, usually this is big enough to actually face. And the funny thing is, probably as you face it on a bit by bit basis, you'll realize it's not as big as you thought it was. You just have to turn around and face it. Now, from the 13th, one of the things I really like, so the solar eclipse stirs it up quite a bit. And I do think communications are likely to go a bit frazzled around that time, because you've got the sun, the moon, Chiron, the North Node, and Mercury retrograde all lined up together. Like 5 days later, Mercury retrograde is beautifully lined up in a semi-sextile to Uranus and Jupiter. Now, if you think Mercury is about thinking, Uranus is the higher harmonic of the Mercury, thought, brain, communication energy. And so you've got this kind of enlightening experience. Mercury is, the way I think I described it earlier was, you've got like a brainwave volume, and you've got the Jupiter volume and the Uranus volume, they are really set to get turned up quite high when they come into their beautiful conjunction. But Mercury is kind of like it's a bigger volume switch. As you turn it up, it's ratcheting up Jupiter and Uranus big style. So what I see is, from the 13th, the energy to create, the energy to get excited, the energy to kind of live life in a whole new way is really coming up, and you're having these deep intuitive flashes or sparks of information. All of this is really to get you to be a lot more creative. And I will really break that down even further and more accurately when I look at the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction later on this month, or next month in April. But yeah, this moment in time, yes, Mercury is retrograde. Yes, things get a bit tense and stuff, but actually there's something miraculous happening. So the more that you go into opening your eyes to the things that are difficult, noticing that when you wince when somebody phones, that means something. I wonder what that means. I wonder what that relates to. Just becoming conscious of it is allowing you to have these great big flashes of new thinking. That in and of itself is really, really worth it. I also, notice, and I mentioned this in the April forecast, the conjunction between Mars and Neptune is pretty strong. And again, this third house is proper tense. It's like really, really a tense place. There's some real good opportunities, within your local community to get even deeper in. But actually, after this is happening, this conjunction is happening after the main part of the retrograde has passed. We're just in the shadow. And so I think what's really coming up with this Mars conjunct Neptune is this kind of lingering feeling of things catching up. It's almost like there's this numb spot, because Neptune can get a little bit fuzzy headed. And so Mars is coming in to help us through some of this fuzz. I think April is a really, really fast moving month. And, when you change, I have done quite a bit of work with hypnotherapy and NLP and stuff. And normally when we make a change, when we reset our position, we can feel a little bit dazed and confused, and it might take a couple of minutes, a few hours. You might be feeling dazed and confused for a few days. because your whole brain is reapplying this new thinking pattern to all the different facets of your life. So I actually think after Mercury retrograde, when a lot of this kind of opportunity to reprogram yourself has come in and really settled with you, I think Mars is coming in to help you kind of regain your clarity. So it's an opportunity. I guess the last thing I want to really sort of like really zone in on is just this huge area that's really lit up in your world in April. You know, so with Pluto here, I think a lot of this need for security, I think your need for security is very much aligned to the fact that Pluto is going through your second house right now. And you know, as that happens, Pluto is maybe making your resources seem a little less certain, a little more perilous. You might not be feeling quite so strong in terms of your finances. You might want a lot more power in terms of your finances. And, you know, is that really coming from your job? You know, it does appear that, you know, you earn a living and that's what gives you the money. But can you earn a living if you're half stable? You know, how much money do you think you can earn more if you are living in the right house, if you've got the right attitude, if all of those funny little mummy and daddy issues are ironed out? You know, you'll be coming from such a clear and powerful place that your earnings are likely to shoot through the roof. So I really think what's going on right now is serving you. All this deep questing and reconditioning of your home and community life. It's giving you a better sense of belonging so that you really know that you can earn more money. And that you can be more powerful. And because you're more powerful, again, you feel less vulnerable. So it's really funny that you start from this place of, I'm feeling vulnerable, and you work all the way through so that you don't have to feel vulnerable. So if I was to put it into words, it's like you are rendering yourself less vulnerable right now. And it's a very deep and big job. So there you go, Capricorn ascendant. I hope that was helpful to you in unpacking the retrograde specifically. Yeah, and hopefully catch you in another forecast soon. Lots of love. So on to Aquarius ascendant. So Aquarius, I've done forecasts for April, like overall April, and obviously I've done something about the eclipse. And doing something about the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction. But the actual retrograde itself is pretty strong, and it's in the sign of Aries. It's a fire sign. It's ruled by Mars. So I think it's important to bear in mind what are Mars's positions during this retrograde period, and also, you know, where the retrograde is really raising your attention to, like, where are you really drawn to? Because I think, you know, the biggest thing that people say about Mercury retrograde is that, you know, details get mislaid or misconstrued. There are miscommunications, misconceptions, people lose things. And, you know, when I think about that kind of energy going on in our lives, really what's going on is where we've overstressed one part of our life, that's where we take shortcuts. So I guess what I'm looking at here in understanding the Mercury retrograde is, where are you taking shortcuts right now? And how can you handle the energy of Mars in this Mercury retrograde? Because it could show up as people in your life that are aggressive and how they might be coming in. You know, there's a little bit of a snappiness going on, you know, that people are a little bit coming from their pain, which again, you would expect, because Mercury retrograde is it's in a conjunction with Chiron the whole way through the whole retrograde. It's just highlighting it the whole time. So, you know, people, when they are coming back at you with something, or, you know, they're coming from a pain position. They're not coming from a position of necessarily wanting to communicate in a fair and easy way. I mean, I'm sure they want it to be like that. And yet we're all hyper aware of how vulnerable we feel. You know, it's just like we don't feel quite safe. So, you know, where are you not feeling safe? And also, where are you cutting corners? Because this is the area where it's likely to really take hold. Now, you might notice that I've popped in this to represent where there's a semi-square to Mars. A few days later, there's also a conjunction with Saturn. I talk about that in the actual April update. We've also got the total solar eclipse. I've popped that in. We've got the Uranus and Jupiter conjunction showing up here. We've got Mercury coming into a conjunction with Chiron, which I've put in here. And then I've sort of darkened out this segment, this third of your chart, which is really representing what I call the big day. And the big day is literally three things happening. So first, it is the Uranus and Jupiter conjunction. Then we've also got Venus and Chiron together, which would fall right here. And then we've also got a exact square between Pluto and the Sun. Now, given that Pluto's right here on the cusp of your ascendant, it's right at the start of your first house. This is a pretty big aspect. So this big day is really like taking you from 2 degrees in the sign of Aquarius right the way through to 22 degrees in the sign of Taurus. So there's a huge wedge of your chart is absolutely in this heightened energy. So what does it all mean? So first of all, with Mercury retrograde, it's starting on the 1st of April at 27 degrees. It's going backwards towards 15 degrees Aries, which on the 25th, it goes direct at this point and then carries on moving forwards again. So it's getting us to rewind our thinking in terms of our sense of belonging, how important we are, how popular we are, how much we want to interact with other people. Are we happy with how sociable we are? Do we feel like we're understood in our community? Do we feel like we need to do more? Like, are we curious enough? Are we needing to learn something as well, which is also captured here? You might also have stuff going on with your brothers, sisters, cousins, and stuff like that, or your peer group. In particular, I always think of this also as a place where our old programming of, our first social experiences happen. So your old school friends, the kind of narrative that you were raised into, just feels like there's a big kind of rewind booked into this part of your chart. And given that Chiron's been here for such a long time and that the North Node has, passed through this point in February and March and is still highlighting in this area, and the fact we've got the total solar eclipse here, and the fact that Chiron's going to be in a conjunction, and the fact that Venus is going to go here as well, just seems like it's all about reprogramming this side of life. So what's so significant about it? How are you aware of it? Do you feel like you are part of something is probably what I would say first. Do you feel like you're important enough? Where do you belong right now? And that's quite a big question, because obviously on the big day, with Pluto here and the Sun right here, it's like Pluto's here in your body, this feeling of I must control things, and then the Sun here at home is like, really want to be at home. So it's like, how can you feel that sense of belonging that your body is really crying out for, and your persona is, I really am home, I really want to be home. So to me, that's where the action is, I think. So it's less about working things out in terms of your place within your family, your parents and stuff like that, but more about friendships and learning and how easy it was or how uneasy it was. And it may well be that you're going back in time to relearn some of the things you needed to learn from a whole new perspective. You might be, realizing your childhood was different from how you now view it. I don't know, but it's pretty big stuff. Now, what will happen when you change the way you think about this? I mean, that's another thing to consider, isn't it? Now, whilst that's also going on, I do mention this in the April forecast, but from a completely different perspective. But you've got Mars and Saturn and Neptune in your second. Now, second is about how you value yourself, but also the income that's coming in. But given that Mars is also quite formidable as an opponent at the time of the Mercury retrograde, it also shows up as somebody who might be chasing you down, maybe in terms of your work and how much you're earning. It might be that there's a customer, or, there's somebody at work that you don't feel that comfortable with, but it feels like there's a frustration. And it may well be that you're wanting a greater sense of power in how you are respected or received in terms of your working ability. So yeah, there's this kind of frustration, and you may well be embodying it and doing something about it, which is obviously what I recommend. But where you're not facing that frustration, it's almost like these like airwaves of frustration are kind of filtering out from you, and other people are picking up on it like antennas and mirroring it right back at you. So if you've got a lot of stroppy people at work, a lot of stroppy people firing stuff at you that almost is meant to belittle you or make you question yourself, then this is probably what's going on with Mercury retrograde. And in fact, whilst it feels a bit painful and it feels like it's not really a gift, it actually is a gift, because it's giving you all the material you need to see where you don't feel socially accepted. It's giving you all the material that you need to be able to put this right. And of course, right now we're in this Mercury retrograde period where you can rewrite all of these old belief patterns about yourself. So it is a deeply powerful time, but because the planets are conspiring to bring it all up, it's almost like a really fast acting stomach bug. It is absolutely bringing everything up. It's not like you can just vomit a couple of times, drink a glass of water and move on. It's going right back to the sort of bits that look like carrots that come up and you think, oh no, there's nothing left. Oh, yes, there is. So, yeah, watch out. Like from the 6th to the 10th, I would say is the spikiest period, when Mars comes into a real strong semi-square to Mercury. And then on the 10th, when Mars is in a conjunction to Saturn, that's when people become flipping know-it-alls. And you could also become a bit of a know-it-all yourself. So it's a time to be aware of the impact of your certainty. And also when people try and push their certainty onto you, it's a great time for you to be able to step back and say, that's true for you. I can see that. And I'm still thinking about it. Thank you. Kind of like, goodbye. So you're really signaling that. And of course, the total solar eclipse falls into that period of time. Now, given that the solar eclipse is happening in your 3rd house, I do think that your community is changing, and maybe one of the interesting things that's going on for you right now is that you're finding yourself in a community and actually you're kind of wanting to be somewhere else, or you're learning that the community you've been involved in isn't quite who you thought it was. And so you're making the necessary adjustments, but it does feel like this changes. Maybe the community you're living within is going through big changes, which is having a knock-on effect with you. Use your greatest levels of intuition and discernment around the time of the solar eclipse, because it just feels like if there was going to be anything going on, it's at the community level. So make your own mind up as to how deeply into the community you want to show up on that day when people are extra sensitive. Beyond that though, I really just want to talk about the opportunity that's coming up from the semi-sextile between Mercury on the 13th and 14th. He makes a semi-sextile to Uranus first and then to Jupiter. And so what he's doing here is really ramping up the energy. It's almost like he's shining a light towards Uranus and Jupiter and saying, I know you're coming. I know this conjunction's coming up. And I'm putting some of my energy here. I'm putting some of my hope here. I really see it as a bit of a law of attraction time. This is a time when we can absolutely be thankful for what we're manifesting. And I think really push our boundaries quite a bit and manifest a bit more than what you are bargaining for. So if I was in your shoes around the time of the 13th, 14th, I would get into some kind of pattern of giving gratitude or asking these huge questions that are unanswerable, but which, if you could answer them, would bring you all of the intel that you need to really raise your game. Because the Uranus and Jupiter conjunction is a game shifter, a game raiser. So you might ask things like, I don't know, what is the greatest gift being in my community can give me? How can I find an even greater connection to the people around me? And so ask, these massive questions. And given that the Uranus and Jupiter effect is really highlighted in your home, this isn't even, you could be looking for ways to have even more fun and adventure from home, to widen your breadth of experience from home, not to have to travel too far to do it, or to be able to live in a completely different way. The world is your oyster, literally. So as I sum this up then, towards the end of this Mercury retrograde, and in fact, just after it, the final part of this is Mars, obviously the ruler of the Mercury retrograde. Mars is going into a conjunction with Neptune right at the end. Mercury is moving forwards again. And so you're probably recalibrating. New learning has come in. You've thought about things. You've reflected on things. And often with Neptune, it shows up as a bit of a fuzzy head, almost like a hangover from a bit of a party or a really intense time. I would give yourself a bit of a break, given that Mars is in a conjunction to Neptune in your second house, which is where you find your own value. I would give yourself as much time as you need to process all the changes that have been going on. It really has felt intense. And of course, who am I and where do I belong are massive questions. And to me, that's what you've been answering and asking yourself and also getting the answer to. So go easy on yourself right at the end of this retrograde and get ready, because from, the end of May, is like after this big day, as I've put it, on the 21st of April, Jupiter then gets a real move on and starts heading at quite some speed towards the sign of Gemini. And he's going into Gemini on the 25th of May. That is lining us up for a really fast-paced and interactive summer. And that Jupiter point, as it goes into Gemini, is going to make a really powerful trine for you and your ascendant. So go easy on yourself after this time. Thank every part of you that has involved itself in this process, and get ready, because you are going to be upping your game massively. So anyway, I hope that's helpful, and stick around for other forecasts coming up in the next few weeks. But if I can be of any help, just get in touch. You know how to find me. Lots of love. Bye for now. Okay, so let's have a look at Pisces then in terms of this Mercury retrograde. So as you're probably aware already, I've got, an April forecast that is looking at things. I've already done an eclipse forecast, which is really talking about all of the eclipses this year, but in particular, the eclipse we've just had and the eclipse that's coming up. We've also got the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction that's coming up on the 21st of April, right in the middle of this Mercury retrograde. So it's like these two big events. Mercury retrograde is linking them, is uniting them, really. It's a big time. So, and on the day of the Uranus conjunction, we've also got two other big things going on. That's why I've called it a big day, and it's really spanning its influence from here right the way through to here. Got Pluto here in an exact square to the sun at 2 degrees in the sign of Taurus, really creating this sense of, I want to break free of manipulations. I really want to be the leader of my own life. The sun and Pluto in a square is really about finding your own level of control. And then Venus is in an exact conjunction with Chiron on that day. It's massive. What a potential that exists on that day. It's incredible. So yeah, as I'm looking at this, I want to share with you my thoughts about what you're healing, what you're letting go of, what you're freeing yourself from, what you're making yourself really vulnerable to, in order to, just cut away the tendrils of the past that are holding you locked in place. It seems really important to do that right now, because let's face it, Mercury retrograde starts at the 7 degrees on the 1st of April, goes backwards all the way to 1558 in Aries. And then on the 25th of April, it goes forwards again. But it hasn't even got past this point until the 13th of May. So, I'm recording this on the 30th of August. 30th of March. I need my glasses. I read that as an 8. The 30th of March. Why am I time traveling whilst doing this? It's bonkers. So I'm recording this literally the day before Mercury retrograde starts. and it is in a retrograde or a shadow until the 13th of May. You know, that's another, you know, it's 45 days roughly. I don't know, it's around that, you know, it's a long time. So, the retrograde is in the sign of Aries, as you're probably aware, and that's ruled by Mars. So this retrograde is taking place in a kind of real Martian way. So you may well have realized that there are people that are ready for a fight and ready to stand strong for what they believe in. Doesn't matter what you believe in. They're going to bloody tell you what they think. You know, they're giving you a piece of their mind. So yeah, it's a funny old backdrop to have a Mercury retrograde in right now. You know, that it's occurring with all these massive conjunctions on the most powerful eclipse I've ever seen. And so where it's falling in your chart is an area where you're likely to get more feistiness, but also conversely, all the feistiness is coming your way or sort of pointed at you. What it's doing is it's really showing you where you're a bit tight, where you're not free, where you're not fully vulnerable. And it's showing you what you need to let go of to be able to move forwards again. So it's, you know, it doesn't look like a gift, but I think it is actually kind of gift wrapped. Now, given that Mars is the ruler of Aries, I want to really start the ball rolling here because, you know, Mars is in the sign of Pisces. He's also in your first house. And so as this Mercury retrograde is coming in, you know, like you're less rational. So our intuition is shooting through the roof. We're intuiting things, and that's how we're making sense of the world. So we're not as articulate as we might usually be. To be fair, you've got Pisces rising, so you're more tapped into the intuitive than you are to the rational. So Mercury's actually sort of in a sense kind of working to your strengths right now, which is kind of great. But with Mars in the first house, you're really experiencing in a very physical way. So the Mercury retrograde, the information you're not getting from the world, you're probably feeling in your body in a really strong way. So that's worth bearing in mind. You might not get to hear everything you need to hear or know, but what's really more important is that you really focus in on what's going on in your body. Your body will tell you everything you need to know. Now, on the 6th in particular, so let's just say the 5th to give it a day to come in, Mars is going to be in a semi-square, an exact semi-square to Mercury retrograde. And semi-squares bring up frustration. You're likely to get quite frustrated with yourself. You're likely to lose your rag. You might be a bit careless or clumsy in terms of your body, given that your body is wanting to move quite fast and your mind and your responses don't seem to be keeping up at quite the same speed. So, you know, watch out for that, because, you know, as I see that, if you're not conscious of your body moving faster than your mind can keep up, you know, you could be quite accident prone and you could do yourself an injury. So really watch out for that. Don't set yourself up for some kind of fall or failure. There's no need for that. You might choose before you do anything to get out any energy that you've got. So if someone's peed you off, or if someone's called you out on something and you're feeling actually quite seething or simmering, something going on, it's important to let it out as much as you can. And I don't know how you might choose to do that. But the reason I'm sharing that with you, and you might not even have to do it with that person, by the way. You might just be able to kind of jump up and down and scream. I've done that, and it is quite helpful. But you'll have your own way, I'm sure. But it's important to get that energy out so that when you are moving forwards, engaging your body, you're less likely to, that bristling energy is less likely to come forwards and kind of jolt you in an uncomfortable way. Of course, this energy is still kind of present around the time of the solar eclipse. And so again, you want to be really careful with how you're using your body, and just recognize that right now with this retrograde, it's going on in the part of your chart that is associated with self-worth. And more than that, actually, it's, you know, about your earnings and how much you stand in the world. Like how effective are you? Do you feel effective? Do you feel like people know what they get when they get you? Do you get yourself? Do you value yourself? So it's bringing up a whole heap of stuff about that. And of course, if you do yourself an injury, or if you find yourself poorly because you've got so much tension gnawing away at you, you're less likely to feel empowered. You're less likely to feel on top of your game. You're less likely to value yourself. You know, there's that kind of schism that comes up between our intellect and our bodies, where our personality wants to run the show, and yet really right now we need to pay more attention to the body. So that's really going on. As the retrograde is going on, I think any misconceptions or difficulties that might come up are probably around money. And probably around, you know, like maybe somebody's given you something and they want it back, but you thought it was a gift, not a loan. Again, if you're sharing things, I think anywhere where you're sharing resources and sharing money and helping people out, that's a really tight point that could be exploited, misconstrued. It's a potential confusion, a site of confusion. It's a sticking point. So that's one area where it's really, really worth getting clear about, because if somebody calls you up and accuses you of stealing or hoarding or not being honorable with things, that's a really weird experience, isn't it? That could be really internalized in quite a negative way. So yeah, I really see that these are all going on. And the fact that they're going on, I think, you know, is probably bringing up something about the past in terms, and I know I've spoken about this quite a lot with you, this whole year, in fact, your ability to receive. You know, do you feel like you deserve to receive all the good that the world has got for you? Do you feel deserving enough? And of course, if you're not, then anyone who's being one of these quite manipulative or strong or forceful people coming into your life almost as an attack against you, they're more likely to see that you're uncertain. You know how people just seem to zero in on I guess, like to use a description of the natural world. You know, a lion, when it goes chasing antelope, it will look for the weakest one, because that will be the easiest one to overpower. So if there's somebody who wants to be a bully with money, they will find the person who is the weakest with money so that they can have their way with them. So you really want to consider how you can receive more and value yourself more, so that you're open, and so that those proverbial money bullies stay away from you. I mean, they will find somebody else, and that will be what they're working on anyway. I'm quite sure of that. So yeah, big things coming up. Now from the 13th, things start to get a lot more exciting. And this is where I think maybe you in particular are getting peed off with your insecurities, and actually open, like really open to saying, okay, I really have had enough. I realize that where I'm not receiving things, where I'm not open to valuing myself so much, where I've had doubts about myself, you know, it's funny, when we doubt ourselves, we're often not very certain in our body language, and raising the chances of accidents and things, which obviously can be showing up right now with Mars in this part of your chart. So, you know, I think towards the 13th, 14th, there's this lovely moment where Mercury retrograde is connecting into Uranus in a semi-sextile and to Jupiter. And it's saying, okay, I really am ready for this shift now. I am so ready. I think I've learned everything I need to know now. I think I've got all the details. I'm so open to this change. And like for the next week, until this massive day on the 21st, it feels like the energy is growing. The expectations are growing. So if you could absolutely use from the 13th to 21st, 22nd as this almost like a retreat. Give yourself your own retreat, Pisces ascendant. You know, write down all the things you're bringing in, the law of attraction type stuff. Get really creative about it and imagine you're receiving it. In fact, if you are doing anything law of attraction, I would absolutely ham it up so much more in terms of what the world is giving you, how you're receiving it, how great it feels to receive it. Really go into it, even if it goes beyond what you're comfortable in receiving. I think it's important to just push those boundaries as much as possible, getting you ready for this lovely Jupiter and Uranus energy. Another thing that occurs to me is these big unanswerable questions which you might have about receivership. So, if you're uncomfortable with ordering from the law of attraction or the universe all these great things for yourself, you might want to ask yourself, how much better can it get? How much more joy can I experience right now? How much more wealth could I possibly enjoy? And ask yourself these big how questions that are pushing your boundaries out, because where you're not able to answer it yourself, I think life is co-creating with you, and it will be filling in the answers, giving you little clues. Because here's the thing, when all this starts to take shape, and like Pluto is here right at the, right in your unconscious mind, whatever is going on right now, it feels to me like you're making a permanent change. You're making a permanent shift in your consciousness. It really is moving you. And of course, this is where it's manifesting. It's manifesting in the area of your community. So you better get used to receiving, because when things get delivered, they get delivered by somebody, and they're going to get delivered from somebody in your community. So I hope that's helpful to you, Pisces ascendant. As I see it, this Mercury retrograde is almost like the end of book one. I was thinking about what 2024 is, and I think it's a year of 3 parts. This first part is, quite frankly, the busiest part, the one with all the different chaotic thoughts and quite possibly world events. I see the middle part being quite fun and quite frivolous. With Jupiter going into Gemini, it's going to get quite big and quite chatty and quite interesting. And then the end of the year is a lot more intense, and it's really building on how well you kind of sign off on the end of part 1 of 2024. And we are right at this point. We are at this point of almost like signing off from one contract, and getting ready for another. So this is an area of closure for you, I do believe. So there you go. Anyway, I hope that was helpful to you, and I look forward to catching up with you another time. Lots of love to you. So I just want to apologize if there's any bits that I feel like I've repeated. I've obviously looked at the month of April from all different perspectives, from the eclipse, April itself, and the retrograde. And I also think there is something it's kind of Mercury retrograde, in fact, to have done it like this in so many different parts, but all about the same time, because there are these like layers to April. There's layers to the retrograde, and there's so many different layers upon layers upon layers. It's all there for us to enjoy. I really think we're going through a massive shift right now, and I'm super excited. So thanks for joining me today. If you've liked this, please do actually like it. If you've not subscribed, please do come back, be part of the community. Let me know what you think. What are you hoping for? What kind of changes are you hoping to bring in? It's big stuff. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Catch you another time. Bye for now.